Thank you, Catherine.
Hamish forgot to mention that actually he had to hear it all last week, so did some of the other speakers, so they might be a little bit bored. But I already want to say that this is better than Auckland because there's a coffee truck, and last week it was just filtered coffee. So we're one up above Auckland. As Hamish says, I lead Dynamics as a business in New Zealand, and I've been doing that for about 18 months. But part of Dynamics we now call the portfolio business applications, which is mostly why you're here today, to see the Power Platform and the power of that Power Platform and how we're using it out in the ecosystem. But first of all, before I go any further, I want to back Hamish up and say thank you, not only to the people here that are donating their Saturdays, which is amazing. I worked for many large vendors in my career, but I've never worked for one that's got quite the kind of the number of events that Microsoft runs, the number of partners that are so passionate about donating their time. At dinner last night, when I reflected on 7 or 8 people sitting around the table, all speakers phoned from various places or from Christchurch. They're just so passionate, and so really want to say thank you to those people who speak today, and a huge thank you to Hamish, Rami, and Guyan, who have made this event happen, and of course to our other partners and customers that are donating their Saturday. Happy Saturday, everyone. And so I thought I would start on Microsoft's mission, and I don't know about you, but from my perspective, never in my 20-plus career in IT have I seen missions in companies taken so seriously. And there's a real expectation now that companies don't just stand for selling products and services, but they have a stance in terms of what they do in the social realm and how they give back to communities. And of course, I'm here to semi-promote Microsoft, but I wanted to share just how deep this mission runs in terms of Microsoft with a few examples today. The first one, obviously, this was Satya's mission, our CEO. So when he came on 4 years ago, just over 4 years, you would largely say Microsoft had gone from saying we're going to have a desktop or a PC on every desk in every home, which the pundits thought would never be possible. And look how many there are now, countless in our household. And then, they'd kind of gone into an irrelevance or obscure phase. So Satya's had a huge job to refresh the company. And I'll be very frank with you, I wouldn't have joined the company 5 years ago. My father had worked for Compaq New Zealand. He'd run Compaq many years ago, and he'd experienced Microsoft as a little bit like a cult-like company, the kind of company that, Obama would get on stage and, smash Unix, Unix is terrible and, Microsoft's fantastic. And it just wasn't, it was very much a know-it-all culture. So Satya has had a huge job in turning us to trying to be much more of a learn-it-all culture. We're not there yet, but I think we're making huge strides in that area. And so when he made this mission, one of the very important statements in it is not just empower, but every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. So not just the businesses that we deal with, but people. And I wanted to show you an example of what we've done. One of the things around our company mission that's very important is accessibility. And I don't know what your companies are doing in that space, but some of the companies I've talked to today are from the health system. So I assume this is quite near and dear to your hearts. How do we make technology more accessible? How do we make work more accessible for people who may have, various disabilities, whether it be physical, mental, whether it be from the point of view of hearing, eyes, etc. This particular video I love because it shows, I've got 2 kids, I'm sure many of you have kids too, just how can we, equalise and democratise kind of their ability to have fun with the adaptive controller. So I'm just going to play this video. Takes a couple of seconds to load.
My name is Grover. Sean. My name is Ian. I'm Taylor. My name is Owen, and I am 9.5 years old. I only have 1. And yeah. I love video games, my friends, my family, and again, video games. Whenever I play, it makes me feel happy. The fun that you get to have with connecting with your friends. You make your own rules?
It's his way of interacting with his friends when he can't physically otherwise do it.
When I'm playing with a regular controller, there's some things that don't work for me. It's difficult for me to use both joysticks and the D-pad at the exact same time.
And it just slowed me down a bunch more while other people were like,
She's never had the freedom to play at the level she knows she could.
I had never thought it was unfair. I just thought, hey, this is the way it is and it's not going to change. What I like about the adaptive controller is that now everyone can play. I don't even have to look at the controller and just like looking at the screen like, hey, yeah.
You never want your kid to feel like an outsider or an other.
One of the biggest fears early on is, how will Owen be viewed by the other kids? He's not different when he plays.
It's a little challenging, but that's the whole point of gaming. I can hit the buttons just as fast as they can. And I think I can crush my friends. No matter how your body is or how fast you are, you can play. It's a really good thing to have in this world.
Pretty awesome. And that's not to say that Microsoft is the only organisation doing this sort of thing. I'm sure your organisations are trying to make the world a better place. And I think that's partly why, you've donated your Saturdays. There's always a why. Why are you here today? And how can we all make a difference? And so I was a little nervous this morning when I woke up and just had a relook at my presentation, because last week I talked about the tragic event on March 15th here in Christchurch in Auckland, and it was a little bit removed. We all felt it, but today I realised that when I talk about this, there may be people in the room who lost people or know people who lost people of the 51 that died that terrible day. So my deepest sympathies and respect go out to you. The reason why I wanted to talk about it today is, of course, I've just shown you an example of our global mission, but everyone always says, so what? What does that mean for New Zealand? And I think that for us, for our company anyway in New Zealand, we saw what we stand for, from empowering every person and organisation on the planet to achieve more, to how does that resonate in New Zealand? And so that was a terrible day. And, that day we lost two members of the community that's here today, very sadly. And obviously Satya sent out his deepest sympathies to those people and also the victims and families. And the two people that we lost from the community, some of you may know them, obviously Syed came from Intigen. Don't know if anyone here in the room knew Syed. Obviously Richard knew Syed. Very, very sad. We left three very young children. And Atta, never met Atta. Anyone meet Atta here? Okay. I read a little bit about his startup, and I never had the privilege of meeting him either. He left one young child, and interestingly was the goalkeeper for the Canterbury and also the national futsal team. So they left a lot behind, and I just wanted to take this moment to recognise that and pay them our respects. And so what was Microsoft's response to this beyond an email from Satya, which is all very easy to do, right? The backdrop of this, and this is not to take away from the tragic events, in fact, we had a very difficult situation to contemplate at that time, certainly not that difficult in context of the people that suffered in what happened. The context was that for 6 months since September, before that March event, we had planned for Microsoft New Zealand to host Brad Smith, who's the Chief Legal Officer for Microsoft and President globally. He reports into Satya, and having hosted James Phillips, who's a CVP or Corporate Vice President for Business Applications Group, who's 3 layers below Brad, and also Hayden Stafford, who's the head of sales for my business. If that level of planning that I had to go into is any evident of what a direct report to Satya takes, then let me tell you there had been 6 months of intense planning around this particular visit. And our head of communications, Bob Glancy, just wanted to cancel the trip. He was due to come the week after the Christchurch tragedy. And he wanted to cancel the trip for a few reasons. One, in the respect of what Christchurch in New Zealand was going through. But secondly, we did not want to appear opportunistic at that point. We had, a delicate balance. And the third thing is, at that time, you may remember, there was probably the biggest backlash ever against social media companies. There was one particular journalist, insisting that Mark Zuckerberg make an apology on social media and, obviously for some of the transmission of that terrible video footage. And so Bob said, no go. And Brad and his team said, no, we're coming. And I think that that was a really bold move to make, because there could have been quite a backlash. And so Brad insisted he was coming, and he came, and he already had several government meetings lined up, but not with Jacinda. Jacinda had said no before Christchurch had occurred, or had not really answered whether she would meet with him. And so prior to him coming, it was a confused nation. It was an angry nation. We were a nation that was seeking answers, and to many, many different things. And one of the very secondary things was, how could we, stop the transmission of that terrible footage in the future, and really make sure that we manage these digital platforms, much, much better. And so in the face of a lot of silence from many technology companies, some were amazing, and I think Microsoft was one of them, Brad wrote a blog before coming here. The blog was sent to the government for their approval. And I think the thing about the blog that made a difference, and why Jacinda ultimately agreed to meet with him, was that he talked about practical things that we as the technology industry need to do. And those three things were, the first one was, how do we, advance the technologies that are existing around photo DNA and also AI, and utilise those for the good to prevent this kind of content going out in the future. But at the same time, balancing it with, the public need to have information in an appropriate way. The second thing was that he talked about was around the fact that, unfortunately, tragedies may well happen again, hopefully nowhere and hopefully not here again. But if and when they do, how do technology companies come together in kind of like a virtual command centre way to ensure that they are using those digital platforms in a way, again, that is not harmful to the public and is respectful, but again, making sure, that they can respond in a very real-time fashion to those sorts of events in the future. And the third thing was around digital civility, is around the fact that, hatred and terrible words have existed for, for many, many hundreds and thousands of years. However, obviously with the internet, the ability to be anonymous has made it even worse. And we're seeing that in New Zealand with, the rate of bullying is so high in our school system, etc., particularly in the social media space. So how do we really invoke that digital civility around making sure that that hatred and that, those terrible words that often we see on these social media platforms don't happen? And so those were the three areas that he said we as a community need to focus on. He met with a few different ministers. He met, and Jacinda heard about some of the conversations he was having and decided to meet him. Now, pretty nervous by then, because his previous interview had been with a journalist called Catherine Ryan in New Zealand, and she had drilled him. She had drilled him from everything from anti-measles vaccinations to, the role of technology in the world, and of course bringing it back to the Christchurch event. And he came out of that interview and he said to Bob, "My goodness, CNN has nothing on her." So that was the context, right? And that's the thing. What he said is, when you're a company that has views on everything, you put yourself out there to be asked about everything, and that's what occurred. So Jacinda met with him. She put him at the head of the table, and she said, "It's your forum. We really want to explore how do we garner technology companies like yourselves to do the right thing." That led to the Paris event, and this is no way solved. But I think that for me, I think there are a few things that resonated for me here. One is Microsoft is determined to stand for more than just selling our products and services, and that was meaningful in a New Zealand sense. We also had a say at the time about how do we prevent this in the future. And I think that actually Brad Smith himself, what Bob tells me, he spoke at one of our all hands, but I didn't get to spend time with him. The saying became, when Bob had said, "Please don't come," when Bob had said the meeting with Catherine Ryan, the journalist, will be brutal. At no point did Bob say, I'm not going to do it. And so it became Bob can handle it. And so I guess the calibre of that kind of executive should be able to handle that kind of conversation. But I think Bob Glancy made the right call in the end in bringing Brad here. And those discussions continue with Jacinda, so it hasn't stopped with that visit or Paris. And so in light of this, digital platforms, what's going on around the world, and how do we, make a difference in this kind of context? And I think that today you'll see a lot of how, or, how do you use a power platform? How do you use it to help transform your businesses? Hopefully, how do you use it to do good? I had a bank come up to me in Auckland's keynote, after Auckland's keynote last week, and say to me that after my presentation, he thought about, how do we help vulnerable customers more? How do we help those customers that continually drain their bank accounts on the wrong things and warn them, that we can see those sorts of trigger events, whether it's a payment come in, a certain day of the week or the month, to stop, that harmful behaviour to them and their families. And hopefully today, you'll be inspired, and I'm sure you already are, because you've given up your Saturdays to do something good. We have enormous power to do that. We have, over 100,000 employees. We have over 17 million partners and 7 billion people on the planet to have an impact on. And today, hopefully, we'll contextualise how do we as a community, customers, partners and Microsoft make a difference, not just to our organisations, but also to the broader good. And one thing that Satya, our CEO, is extremely intent on this year and is on our minds is how do we ensure that our customers and partners and Microsoft keeps up with this, this tech intensity. I, as a person who's been in sales for just over 20 years, have never ever felt the demand or expectation so high of me to know more than, kind of base layers of technology. I'm getting there, but I'm now expected to be able to go much deeper because our customers, like you, are so much better educated. And likewise, this tech intensity is, if you look at statistics of companies that are dying because they're not transforming fast enough, then it's scary. And I think as individuals, we actually also have a role to play. Just before Friday last week, actually, I'd ordered some stationery for my daughter from a stationery company. And for some reason, it allowed me to put in the order without an address. Now, that's a problem in itself. The order couldn't be delivered. And then when they contacted me about this 3 or 4 weeks later, I called them up and I said, okay, so can you just redispatch it? Here's my address. No, CSR, customer service representative, said, can't do that. Our process is you now need to cancel. We'll cancel the order and then you need to reorder it. And I'm like, are you kidding? And I struggled to be respectful because, you have to be, this person doesn't have any say around their processes. And so I tried to respectfully say, hey, can you see the impact that has on a customer experience? And can we look at how you can just redispatch that order? And so she got on the phone to a supervisor and voila, suddenly they worked out a way, probably manual, but to satisfy me that I didn't need to go and reorder. And I think that's our role, is to challenge organisations, your own and others, about what they're doing to make that customer experience better. I mean, last night I checked into a hotel here and it would happen anywhere. It happens in Wellington, it happens in Auckland, everywhere. I'd stayed here 2 years ago. They have no record of me. I have to fill out paper, should have been a Power App, to recertify my addresses. It's mind-boggling. And then in Samoa, I was there a week and a half ago, and great, beautiful country. Who's been to Samoa? So the non-touristic aspect of it's fantastic, right? But you get to a hire car company and you fill out reams of paper, and you kind of think to yourself that they are competing with, global tourist destinations that will digitally transform these companies. So my experience of hiring a car will be far more seamless, far quicker, and I get to get on my holiday quicker. So how do we start to challenge that? How do we start to say, hey, this isn't a good process? And I'm pretty sure you guys and girls are going to learn about, and I know you're already embarking on it, how do we use the Power Platform to do that as well, to digitise? So what do? We have to make sure that companies are adopting technology. More and more companies are software companies, right? And also that we're enhancing the capability, which is why you are here today. But at the same time, trust can't be underestimated either, and I'll touch on that in a minute. We have an extensive portfolio, and we often forget about the gaming, but because I talked about the adaptive controller, I've added our fourth cloud there today. And how do we, infuse that tech intensity across those platforms to enable customers to transform, to digitally adapt, to be able to thrive in what is the fourth industrial revolution. And trust can't be underestimated. Satya recently said trust cannot be claimed. It must be earned. And we all know that personally in our family lives, in our social lives. We get as much as we give. And so trust, really, how do we inspire trust to make sure that, I talked to a customer this morning who's looking at moving to the cloud more and more, probably hybrid as they go. But, it's a big leap for many companies who are still getting to the cloud. And how do you trust that technology is going to be right, and that you're not going to leak critical customer data or other employee data or any sensitive data. And so we've gone about really making sure that there's several principles we adhere to. One is that we embed cybersecurity in every solution that we have. The second one is that we really look at what are the set of ethical principles that must guide the use of AI in the future for good, not harm. The other one is how do we make sure that all of this is underpinned by a very principled approach in our everyday engineering operation. And I think that this is really critical as we, as organisations, ensure that we can take on this move to cloud in a trusted way as we put more and more data outside of our own data centres. And trust is just, I guess, underpins Satya's, renowned for, I guess, a statement to say that data privacy is a fundamental human right. And I don't know, how many have you watched The Hack, Cambridge Analytica? Gosh, go home and watch it tonight, Saturday night flicks. It's scary, but extremely interesting. Just in terms of how, they've influenced elections, obviously, but that use of that data. And we talked about tech intensity and what does it mean? Let's look at some data at the moment. Right, so in the non-technology industries, so according to LinkedIn data, our $26 billion asset that I won't talk much about today, the hiring of software engineers is growing 11% faster than in technology, in the technology industry. And in the auto industry, the number of software engineers is growing 3 times faster than auto or mechanical engineers. So that just shows you that we all talk about digital transformation. I sometimes get a little bit sick of the words, but the data is saying that companies are rapidly taking on the fact that they have to be really a software company, and it's our roles to help them to achieve that. An example in point is the average car now has 150 million lines of code. So, and at Ford Motor Company, they have 8,000 developers on GitHub. 8,000 developers. So that's what we mean by tech intensity. Companies are having to gear up for that. And I said to you, why are we here today? Why is everyone interested in Power Platform? Can I have a show of hands? It's just free marketing information for me today, sorry. Is how many of you don't use Dynamics? So who uses Dynamics in this room? Okay, still lots of opportunity. And who uses Power Platform with Dynamics but doesn't have Dynamics? Wow. Who's using Power Platform without Dynamics? Wow, okay, cool. Okay, lots and lots of opportunity today. So why is Microsoft so adamant that we have to democratize development, that we have to enable it to be citizen development? Well, there's some other data points that are very, very critical. 500 million applications will be developed within the next 5 years, more than in the last 40 years. But 73% of that data remains unanalyzed. Why? Because it's all in silos, as we know. There's a CRM system, there's an ERP system, there's a manufacturing system, there's email, there's, clinician systems, and they don't talk to each other. So really that, that brings us to our dual challenge. I have to, gosh, I think we might have a frozen situation here. Oh, no?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to have to go back to the hand. That brings us to what are we doing around the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. And it's a dual challenge, as I said. How do we create all these applications and at the same time tap into all of the data inside an organisation? And that's what's really motivating us to build Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform in the way that we're doing. And all of it starts with what we call digital feedback loops. I talked a little bit about the example of that stationery company earlier today. And, the reality is that that poor customer service representative in the contact centre probably has absolutely no visibility or the ability to communicate, collaborate with their dispatch area of their organisation. So, she's trying to, or the lady in this case, engage the customer, but at the same time, she needs operational information to provide to me in order to really service my needs, right? And how are we empowering those people to be able to do that, staff to be able to do that, to be able to access structured, unstructured data and be able to reason across it and bring it together? And at the same time, all of this data, helps organisations transform their products. For example, we all know that cars are moving from being, one day they may not even sell a car, they might just be a transport as a service organisation, right? So companies are having to take all this data and make sure that they adapt their products and services accordingly. How do we bring that data together? That is the key challenge. And this is what we call at Microsoft our digital feedback loop. We really have to work across these 4 dimensions in terms of our products and services to help our customers and partners help our customers transform. And at the same time, because when you think about it, these 500 million applications are not going to, there's not enough professional developers to service that, quite frankly. We need to enable the citizen developer, the business analyst, the business person who is closest to the business problem to be able to solve these challenges. And that is why, obviously, you're here today on that information in an ordered way. I've not got the video today because I feel it's a little bit old, but if you haven't seen the Virgin Atlantic video of how they have optimised fuel efficiency, which I'm told is one of the most complex, costly processes an airline can have, and the way that they have embedded Power BI as a dashboard and the ability to monitor those aeroplanes as they're flying and figure out what the fuel consumption is, and if it makes economic sense to speed up the plane and therefore consume more fuel, slow the plane down, whatever it might be, with algorithms, everything behind it, and automating the business processes that previously were manual to make those decisions in the same Power BI with the flow in the background, automating and orchestrating those business processes around fuel efficiency, and the Power App embedded to be able to press a button to say, right, I want the plane to go faster, and then that changes the trajectory of the fuel consumption. That's the Power Platform, and that I really encourage you not just to be looking at it as Power Apps, because that's where we need to get to in the business processes as we transform. And so if you consider the architecture that it composes, we've talked a lot about disparate data and so, and data in general. This builds on Azure services. It has a common data model. It has connectivity back to Dynamics 365 and Microsoft 365. Hands up who uses Microsoft Office 365. Pretty sure 100% will be up. Okay, good. Shouldn't have got that Google device, right? And so basically Microsoft and Dynamics 365 act as microservices, and they enable the data in those microservices to be available for any Power App developer. At the same time, we have connectors over 260 to many popular apps, I'm afraid to say, such as SAP and Workday, and others, and obviously partners like Adobe, making that integration just so much easier, and I'm sure you'll learn more and more about that today. And that composition is something that Satya talks about. So I wanted to now play the Satya video from our recent Ready and Inspire, which is a partner and employee kickoff that was held in Las Vegas. It's an annual event. If anyone thinks that Microsoft's not serious about Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform, then look at the passion of this guy right now. So he will talk a little bit about the Power Platform, but then we'll go into a demo of GJ Pepsi using the latest addition to the Power Platform, very exciting product called AI Builder, which again goes to our mission to democratize AI for good, for companies to be able to take on AI without having to have hundreds of developers to do so. Who in the room has already heard about AI Builder? Cool. All right. Well, who hasn't is going to get pretty excited now.
This is perhaps the best composition from Azure all the way to citizen developers. In fact, there can be workflow between professional developers working on Azure who can then create a microservice and expose it to a Power App developer. That's the type of developer activity that we see. And in fact, we have a new addition to the Power App family. It's the AI Builder. It takes some of those magical AI cognitive services capabilities and brings it to any application that you may want to build. And to show you this in action, I want to invite up Ryan and Eric. Ryan and Eric, take it away.
Thank you, Satya, and thank you, Eric, for coming out to share your story with us today. Tell us just a little bit about G&J Pepsi.
Yeah, G&J Pepsi is the largest family-owned bottler in the Pepsi system. We have about 1,600 employees in Kentucky and Ohio.
Okay, so private company, regional focus here in the U.S. Tell us how you're using AI in the context of Power Apps.
Yeah, you know, Ryan, I'd rather show you than
All right.
Let's
You want to see it?
Let's give the people what they want, right? So we live and die by counting, you know, our retail space. It's really important, right?
Okay.
So we do a lot of counting, we do a lot of auditing, and that's a time-consuming process.
I imagine.
But with this application, we can offload a lot of that workload.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and do this. It's really simple, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and hit detect on here. We're going to take a file. So I'm going to take a picture. We've got some beautiful bottles of Mountain Dew here.
I'm thirsty already.
Yeah, me too, bro. All right, so I'm going to go take this photo, and we're going to just go ahead and just. Now, I want you to think about this at scale, right?
Sure.
Just have a couple Mountain Dew bottles here.
Yeah.
We have hundreds of products, thousands of customers, right?
Yeah.
You can imagine the time that takes.
That's a lot of manual counting if you're doing it on a clip.
Yeah, absolutely, right? It's a Herculean effort to do this. But as you can see, the application has done this for us.
Wow.
And we can go ahead and submit these records, and then we can analyze the sales and do a lot with that, right?
That's amazing, but level with me here. I mean, what does it take to really put something like this together? You got to have an army of software developers, data scientists, right?
No, on the contrary, Ryan. When we first got into the Power Platform, we had 2 individuals working on scenarios like this, none of which had any professional development experience.
And one of those individuals is you, right?
Yeah, surprise. Yeah, that's why I'm here. So, but let's make no mistake, Ryan, the competition isn't going to let up just because we don't have the tools or the skill sets to be able to bring these scenarios to life. And that's where we've seen the Power Platform be the great equalizer and allow us to compete and win in the marketplace.
So the great equalizer. I think a lot of us in this room could use an equalizer, regardless how big our team is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So can you show us a little bit of what it takes to actually build with AI?
Yeah, let's do it. So I've got these pictures already uploaded. And here's what's great about this, right? It's as easy as drawing a box.
I could do that.
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to simply tag it. And then what's great about this is it'll auto box for you. And you can just quickly tag these images in a very rapid fashion, right?
Awesome.
Then when you're done, you can simply hit train.
Okay.
And then it's going to present you with a confidence score. Right?
Cool.
If you're not comfortable with it, you can add more images, you can do more tagging, right? And so you're ready, then submit your model to be published into an app.
Cool. So you upload a bunch of images, you tag them, you train the model, you feel good. How do you actually put it on a mobile device?
You know, this is great. The process gets even easier. Okay, do this. I know it's hard to believe, but it gets even easier. I'm going to go ahead and go to my Maker screen here, my Maker canvas, and I'm going to go ahead and just click on the AI Builder control, add the object detector, and then I'm just going to simply resize this to where I want, and then bind that to my model, and we're ready to go.
And you're ready. That's amazing. So you're just visually building an AI-infused application right in front of your eyes. That's impressive. I mean, how many people out there can take an AI project from a pile of photos, Yeah, that's impressive. But you know what? There's more.
So I encourage you to look up 2 videos. The Virgin Atlantic one, just go onto YouTube and put in Virgin Atlantic fuel efficiency power apps or something like that, or we can send you the links and try and get a hold of that and continue to watch the rest of it, because what Ryan then does is he goes into the back scenes of actually flow and how do you automate processes, how do you bring it into Power BI, how do you create a power app. So actually the bowels of the technology itself. And so one of the things that, obviously I've talked about is that challenge of bringing that data together and also, enabling, I guess, the citizen development to ensure that we get to that 500 million applications. So in terms of our strategy, it's obviously to have line of business applications. Gone are the days, where we're seeing a lot of monolithic ERP or CRM implementations. Customers are often starting with a business process and starting there and then lighting up as they go. And we obviously have many different products around the Dynamics portfolio, and some customers in Christchurch, here in Christchurch, and you'll probably know who they are, but they are literally kind of taking almost all of those products in some cases, and some are just taking 1 or 2, but all of them are obviously taking advantage of that common data model, building up on Azure and the Office 365 and Dynamics 365 data and information. And as I showed you before, the AI Builder was announced back in, when was I in Atlanta? June. It was announced in that June release, or just before, I think maybe April, right, son? The April release. And so along with AI Builder, and the guy in that demo puts it great, we say democratizing, he says it's a great equalizer. Now, how do we help customers who aren't, very tech savvy yet, have the capability to bring AI and transform efficiencies and the way that they service customers of their organizations. And I encourage you, if you haven't already, to have a look at some of the AI-infused newer technologies that we released in April, the customer service insights, for example, and the market insights. I mean, some incredibly amazing capabilities that we continue to build upon. And 91% of the Fortune 500 is using Dynamics and or the Power Platform. So we hope that our strategy is resonating for organisations all around the world. Most of all, I hope it's resonating in New Zealand, and I'm keen to get your feedback on that when I'm at Morning Tea today. And so the way that I think that, how do I wrap this up? So we all know that data is emitting from everything. It's emitting from cars, it's emitting every time that you or I go and visit a website. The companies know what we've looked at. They start to build up preferences. They know if we've abandoned a cart, and hopefully they have a next best action capability to be able to go back to that customer and re-engage that customer so they actually close the sale. And so that data, is coming from everything. And James Phillips, our corporate vice president, who I mentioned before for engineering, I actually say, he says, why are we able to digitally transform now so powerfully? And his view is because the data is coming from everything, and that's what's changed. And so what have we done to respond to that? And one of the things, obviously, we did, we're a little bit late to market, but, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we spent over $30 billion to create a planet scale infrastructure to house, secure, manage that data for our customers. And at the same time, we've taken the Power Platform. How do you reason over that data? How do you derive meaningful insights and patterns over that data? And how do you automate business processes in order to act on that data? Data, as you know, in isolation is meaningless. And then I think that the secret sauce for me, and one of the reasons I joined Microsoft, is that this ability to have Microsoft 365, that unstructured calendaring, email, Teams. And if you haven't seen some of the Teams integration to this product set, then I encourage you to really have a look at it. The ability now to be able to enact on a business process, whether you're a customer service representative or someone in the dispatch center at the stationery company I talked about, the ability now to be able to actually choose to do that process maybe in a Teams site, integrated into the structured business processing and decision-making of our Dynamics portfolio and really bringing that together. They are not called Microsoft and Dynamics 365 for a coincidence. We do see them as the twin applications, bringing that capability together for our customers. And obviously, thousands and thousands of applications on top of that. And if I think about our strategy is Dynamics and business applications is obviously to have as much as possible out-of-the-box applications for customer service, customer sales, customer insights, marketing, soon to be commerce, finance and operations, talent. So clearly, we have to have that out-of-the-box capability, but you're never done with any application. And how do we enable customers with citizen capability to develop applications that kind of go that last mile of automation and digitization? That's the Power Platform. And then, obviously, often from an industry perspective, we can only go so far. We rely on our ecosystem, like the partners here today, to finish that mile with that industry verticalization that you often need, whether it be a health organization, whether it be an agricultural organization. There will be industry verticalization that you require in terms of applications. And that's our strategy to help complete that loop. And so together, the three clouds are critically important. And bringing these suites together really, from our perspective, we hope resonates with our customers, brings them value quicker, means they have a lot less integration effort, means they have a lot less change management because they already know the interface of Microsoft 365, and why should it be vastly different? If you look at it 40 years on, really applications haven't changed a lot. They were green screen once, but they're still often quite awful to work with, and that's really not what we're about. We're building capabilities, or at least trying to. We're never quite there yet, but I think that we're rapidly progressing to enable organisations to work with them and not fight against them, and that's quite critical to bring those three clouds together. And so you say, so what? How does it all come together? I've talked about concepts like the common data model and therefore eliminating data silos. I've talked about how do we democratize AI? How do we democratize data? How do we democratize development? I've talked about the bringing together of Microsoft 365, whether it be Teams or email, to be able to enact business processes that could typically be done in maybe a CRM for sales service or an ERP system in the interface that you want, as opposed to having to go to another interface. I talked about all of this, but what customers are doing it? Well, we have some amazing examples in New Zealand, and I think if you're close to the Christchurch market, you're pretty close to a few that will be going live very, very soon. Maybe today, maybe over the weekend. But I love this UNICEF story because it talks to, I guess, how those capabilities are coming together to enable a charitable organisation to do good.
UNICEF is the UN Emergency Fund for Children. We stand for children's rights and we save their lives. We are doing programs to get them to school, vaccinate them, give them access to water and nutrition. We need funds to do all these programs. We get funds via governments, private individuals, major donors, and corporates. One of the biggest challenges is changing our organizations and adapt to the new world, the digital world. Our donors are changing. With time, we see the expectations of our donor grow. Even so, with the involvement from them in our projects. They want to know how we spend the money, what were the results of the programs, where we were successful or not. And I think that's a very good way of engaging them. We want to transform donors to real lifetime supporters of UNICEF.
In order to increase our impact, it's clear that we need more funds. We're aiming high and we want to grow 20% in 3 years. Customer insights really helps us to segment the right audiences, to focus on them, to engage them in a very relevant way, and to retain them.
We have 60 million records. These data sources contain all the history we have. We don't know what kind of segmentations and information we want to add in the future. With customer insight, we have the possibility to handle more data than we have. We are more future-proof because it's adaptable, flexible, and gives us the possibility to innovate on things we don't know yet.
We base our actions on the data that we acquire from the behavior of the donors. We build new propositions. We create new content that's relevant for them. And it's really helpful to get a 360-degree view. The added value comes with the integration of customer insights with the Dynamics 365 applications. Dynamics 365 for marketing really helps us run and test campaigns at scale.
We are able to automate campaigns so that we can shift from large campaigns to micro-targeted campaigns.
We've been looking for a solution that is based on one common data model, which means that we have all data stored in one place, and that consists of components that supports all elements of our business, be it sales and marketing, finance, operations, all of it. Microsoft helps us leverage the full power of the Microsoft stack, be it Microsoft Azure, Power Platform, including Power BI and the Power Apps, Dynamics 365 for both CRM and ERP processes, and we are connecting all this internal and external data together with customer insights.
Microsoft is a great partner. Using their experience, their knowledge, their expertise gives us the wings to fly, enabling us in our mission to save lives and help children in the world.
I couldn't say it better in terms of bringing all those capabilities together. And so I hope today for you is about, obviously we've explored the why. Why are we doing this? Why is Power Platform so important to all of us? But hopefully today, you know, and I'm sure you're already contemplating what can you do in your organisations and what can you do out in the communities to help, to help organisations achieve more, but also what can we do in the social realm to deliver better outcomes for people. I had the privilege yesterday of seeing Sir Ray Avery speak. He came into our Microsoft New Zealand offices to speak to us. Sir Ray Avery, amazing inventor, done a huge amount for New Zealand and also globally in terms of helping with retina technologies and many other things. But the thing that he's doing right now is he grew up 14 years in the UK in orphanages, and unspeakable things happened during that time to him. But one thing that he said the orphanages at that time got right is that they actually, whilst the food was terrible, they made sure that the nutrient makeup of that food was right for children to engage their minds, to develop them in the way that they should. For example, the terrible porridge was doused with raw cod liver oil for cognitive function of kids. And so he's looked at, how many kids in New Zealand are going hungry, and so many are going to school hungry. And how could he, bakeries are all very well, and I know Jacinda's talked about engaging local bakeries to help with feeding kids, but carbs and bread is not what's going to help those kids lead a better life. And so Sir Ray Avery has come up with the concept of the Amigo bar, which is a bar that has been designed nutritionally to have exactly the right balance of protein, using pea protein powder and carb and other nutrients that will feed the brain and feed the developing muscles of a child, and to get that at under $1 per bar into the schools. And really, you kind of look at that and you get inspired to say, how can we make a difference, not just in our own organisations, but to help the next generation of New Zealanders be able to achieve more in their lives. As Sir Ray Avery said, he can't potentially help with the social problems that emanate in those kids coming to school hungry, but he can certainly help in terms of helping those kids get over that terrible stumbling block that they have to having an amazing life. And so I was inspired, super inspired, and I hope that you guys and girls are really inspired today to look at these technologies and figure out how do we use them, not just for our organisational good, but also for the greater community good. I have been privileged to speak to you today. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, and happy Saturday, everybody. Coffee time. I'll finish just on time. Thank you.
Thanks, Stefan. Yeah, thank you. I'm definitely it's the second time I've seen that keynote now, and yeah, inspired again. You know, to do better with technology. I think, you know, in our day-to-day jobs we do get so focused on, you know, making money or whatever we're doing for our business, but you know, there's a lot of good we can do with technology in the world, and what Catherine has talked about now is the why we're doing it, and then later on today you're going to hear about how you do that, so people have real life examples of how you use the Power Platform and dynamics to solve business challenges, and that's what we're all about. Just before we go to have a break, everyone in your pack, you'll have a little IoT device, and it looks a bit strange to you. Take there's a QR code there that'll take you to a blog that Rami has written, and it will teach you how to connect it up to Microsoft Flow. So every time you push that button, it will run a flow that you've configured. So a nice little way to kind of get, if you're not familiar with Microsoft Flow, a nice way to get into it. So give that a go. But yeah, please head downstairs. There's some coffee down there, and then we'll come back up here. I think it's about 10 past or quarter past to get into it. So this room here will be the business stream, and the technical stream just across the way there as well. Thank you. Okay.
That's yours, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's mine.
That's yours.
Welcome, it's a pleasure.
It's coming out of your weekend.
Oh, don't be silly. I would have stayed longer if I wasn't trying to get back home from my dad.
Fair enough. Are you flying back?
I'm going to fly to
shortly?
Sydney. Try to get outside where I'm going to put it. Because the flights from either Christchurch or Auckland go to Sydney are not available at all. So I'm going to fly back to China.
Yeah. All right.
I wish all of the earlier, you know, I'll see some of the stuff that they access to. It's like schools where, you know, they do it over and
Feel like it's such a different world.
Yeah.
Is it still running?
Yep. We tweeted.
Huh?
Did we tweet the
I
URL?
don't
check the case.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You're okay with that? Yep. Right. Oh. Hi.
Hi, I'm Susie.
Nice to meet you.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. So, you on the
I'm from NZ.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah. So, say with Eugene.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. You didn't recommend it.
Yeah.
I work hours.
Okay. So, are you sort of functional or technical?
I'm somewhere in between. Yeah, somewhere in between.
So you do a bit of coding.
Yeah.
That's nice. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not really good at customer facing, so I try not to if I can. Especially like presenting stuff. It's really not my thing. Like presenting things to the user and like training.
No, so yeah, I see. Do you prefer like the technical aspect?
Yeah, as if I wish, I try to answer the email.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even call them.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah. I try to keep myself long term corner of the developer room.
What made you want to do it?
What made me want to? So I presented starting last year. I did focus in Australia. So just sort of like find it out of the comfort zone. And I started owning Ghostbusters labs, and it's where I try to improve my public speaking. Well, one day, you get to grow in your career, you have an opportunity. In those, you can't really avoid it. Yeah, might as well start now. Yeah, but yeah, my comfort zone is more technology. How have you been New Zealand for?
I really moved to when I was 3. So
Oh yeah.
like 21 years.
So you were in Christchurch since 3.
Yeah.
Oh, so your parents migrated to Christchurch.
Yeah. Are you also in Christchurch?
No, I'm from Wellington.
Are you from Wellington?
Yeah. I just got there 3 years. Yeah, it's almost 3 years. Yeah.
You like Wellington?
Yeah, I prefer than Auckland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I came from Singapore where it's really crowded and busy.
So was Auckland too similar?
Yeah, it was similar. Just more relaxed. So, yeah, so fun inside.
I want to set up a background. All the companies on. Yeah.
Come on, sit forward. Before I'll invite. Okay, so shall we start? Okay, first of all, I'm Lynn, and I work in DXC Wellington. And today, all of my slides will be shared in this URL, or I'll also share my LinkedIn and Twitter account after this session. So you can just take a photo or notes of this URL. And yeah, it's really, thanks for attending my session today. It's a really pleasure to have the first session of the day because people are fresh and energetic. When I presented in Wellington, I was the last session, and the weather was happy and were like they're lost in the presentation. So it's good to have an early session today. So yeah, today the main focus is the unified interface and a little bit of the modern solution designer, the new form designer and the new designer. So how many of you have heard of unified interface? Okay, quite a lot, but how many of you are actually using the production or for the customer? Okay, it's not bad. So today I'm not just going to tell you, about all these glorified, the good features of the unified interface, but I'm also let you know what are the downside of this, what are the ugly truths of unified interface, and what are the difficulties that you're going to face during the transition period. So let's learn about the unified interface. Before we learn, we need to know a little bit of some keywords, jargons that I'm going to use in this presentation. And one of the very first one is obviously unified interface. What is unified interface? Before we learn about unified interface, we need to know the old interface. We call it the legacy web client. So whatever interface that we're using from CRM 2016, 8.2, the old web client, we'll call this legacy web client. And after that, the new interface, we'll call the unified interface. And there's the term called modern driven apps, where we create the different modules of apps in a unified interface for different user roles. And in this latest part of the section, I'm going to cover about the Power Apps Maker Portal, which don't be confused with the Power Apps Portal. Power Apps Maker Portal is actually the new way for the system customizers and developers to customize the forms, customize the views, and customize the entities and stuff, which is better for unified interface because you can have the look and feel of the unified interface. And probably in future, we'll have to use the new Maker Portal instead of the old customization interface. So let's have a quick look at the unified interface. This is the old interface, not unified interface, but in this new unified interface. Oh, by the way, this is I upgraded my environment to this Wave 2 2019. So it might be a little bit different from what you see in your Unify interface. But that is what you will see by October when Microsoft forced to release the Wave 2 upgrades. And there are changes in the navigations. So previously, all these navigations on the top, starting from Siam 2013, but now we're back to the left navigation of the sitemap again, just like old Siam 4 2011. So we're repeating the history itself. Right? So, and where we have to change the areas, we can change it down below. We change the different area in the site navigation. And one thing we can do is, there are recent record items, you can see it here. And from those recent record views and dashboards, or the frequent items that you want to use in the future, you can just pin it and you can access it from the pin menu. But the left side navigations, unlike Siam 4 in 2011, we can cascade it. It's expanded by default, but you can cascade it like this. You have more space for the screen. And when you hover it on the icon, you can see what this entity is for. And there are a bit of changes in the views, but just like look at the field and how you go to the filter. So that's how we usually go to the filter in the records in the previous Unified Legacy Web clients. And in the new Unified interface, it's easier, and there's a filter icon for each column, and you can easily access this filter. Apart from that, the only change is the density of those row records. And in the other change in the view is the chart panes. In the old legacy web client, the chart pane is opening up from the right-hand side. In the new Unified interface, it opens up from the left side and opened by the button on there. And since the Unified interface is designed for mobile and all the other small devices, it's designed into the different screen size. So let's say if I resize my browser in a whole legacy web client, it will just resize, just shrink the same way. But in the Unified interface, it will just reflow into the platform where it shows the first 3 columns of the view. So that is more optimized for the mobile and other small screens. And there are also quite a few changes on the forms, just like the site navigation. The tabs are back. So for those who are familiar with Siam 4, it's how you access the tabs. It will be a different tabs. And all these associated views are previously be accessed from the top menu from navigation, but now it will be the last step in the accelerated records.
Quite strange how it's gone back.
Sorry?
It's quite strange how it's gone back. I'm a 1.2 person, so I think that's nice.
Yeah. And they also did a bit of a change, improvement in the timeline control. Previously, in the legacy web client was a social pane, but in the new Unified interface, it introduced the timeline control where it shows the nodes and all these activities and interaction at the same place. And you have a bit of more customizable control. So it's a little bit more better than social pane, I would say. Yeah, so this is the related entities, how it shows in the Unified interface. And not only the normal forms, the quick create forms also change. So the previous quick create form is just expanding coming out from the top, and it has the 3 columns. Now it comes from the right-hand side of the screen and only 1 column. But in the new updates of the 2019 Wave 2, you can save and create new. So with a quick create form, you can keep creating more quickly in the quick create form. And there are some improvements in the email editor, where previous email editor you can't really do much. Just most of the users, they just compose it in their Word or Outlook and copy paste into their email editor. But the new email designer is much more better. You have more controls to design the rich text formatting. And the best thing is that you have a preview of your email, how you can see it in a different screen size, different orientation, and you can have the preview, and so before you send out, have more design. So let's talk about unified interface. What is unified interface? And unified interface is the primary and soon to be the only interface for Dynamics 365. So across all mobile, Outlook, Teams, any integration, any interface, unified interface will be the only interface. And why do we need to transition to the unified interface apart from Microsoft trying to deprecate it? Why do we have to? Why did they choose to do unified interface? Because it is based on a modern design architecture. They built on the really latest web technologies. Because the previous interface was around CRM 2013, and it was the same things throughout the whole 5 years. So with the unified interface, you can really see the difference. The forms are loading faster and it's more flexible. And in terms of the seamless experience, it's working really nice in the different screen sizes, or in a mobile and or a small tablets. It just works really better in the different screen sizes. And Microsoft also added more accessibility based on their compliance. And with the unified interface, you can create some more modular apps for different roles. Let's say, for example, for field service, you create a separate app for only the forms and views that they need. And from the backend officer, just create a different modular app or driven app for the forms and the data entry that they have to do. And for the management, we create a different order-driven app for them to have the views and charts and the summary of the records. And with the unified interface, you can also customize further by creating custom controls like RFs, component framework. So it will enhance the user experience. So let's go about what are the the gaps between unified interface and legacy web client. What are the things that are still not there in unified interface? So there are a few capabilities which are not there in the unified interface. They are quite minor, not a lot, because last year when I presented the same thing, like in UG Focus, I had 2 full slides offer a lot of capabilities which are not there in the unified interface. Now that this list is getting smaller and smaller. So one of the things is custom styling of the charts and composite controls. just like full name, address. So those controls are not showing as a composite control in unify interface. So you will see first name and last name, 2 different fields. So that's one of the things which is not supported in unify interface. And editable grids on the phones are not working. And the learning part is also not working. And some of the admin experience are not there in the unify interface yet. So, and other things that which are not available in unify interface, Microsoft did a hybrid experience to bring them and make them usable as a unified interface. So for all these features like advanced find, or edit, merging, the histories, when you try to load it in the unified interface, you will see them loading in the whole screen, all legacy web clients. So normally for the new instances, this setting is enabled by default. So to enable the legacy dialogues in the unified interface. But if it's your organization is the instance of the really created way before unified interface, and to enable this to get those features loading in the unified interface. And one of the most complained feature thing is that the read-only entities, like some of the first-party apps entities are still read-only in the unified interface, like product and KB article and contract and all these stuff. So if your organization or if your client's organization still using this one of these entities, you still have to little bit of allow them to still access to the legacy web client to modify those records. But it's not all about disadvantages of using the unified interface. There are also quite a number of advantages for using unified interface. One of them is like custom controls in the business process flow. You can add these fancy little things in the business process flow, and you can have the Microsoft Teams integration only with the unified interface. And one of the best thing is like, the Power Apps, Canvas apps can be embedded in the unified interface. And you can solve some of the problems, business requirements, such as dialogue, those deprecating features using the Power Apps, Canvas apps, embedding Canvas apps. And as I mentioned previously, there are a lot of custom controls available for unified interface. These are Microsoft first-party custom controls. Only a few of them are available in the legacy web client, but in order to use the rest of them, you need to use the unified interface. And not only that, there are tons and tons of custom controls from the community. Next to the community, there's the PCF gallery site. You can go and check it out. There are a lot of dozens of custom controls built by the developers all over the world, just like AK himself. He did quite a number of custom controls and uploaded to the PCF gallery. So for those things, you can only it's only available in unified interface. And one of the custom control that I like is the nested grid, which is when this screen is a count screen where it shows the associated view of the contact records. It's showing the nested records for the child record of the contact records. And there are a couple of other exclusive functionalities like interactive dashboards, reference panel. You can also embed Power BI reports and a few other things that I didn't mention in the slides. So in order to go to the unified interface, you have to convince smaller new projects. It's really recommended to just start off with the unified interface. Don't let the user see the whole interface. So if they don't see it, they don't know what they are missing out. So for the existing projects, you have to start preparing for the transition. You have to let them know that there's this thing called unified interface. If you might want to check it out because the current interface is deprecating soon. So according to the Microsoft Unified Interface Playbook, the legacy web client is likely to be deprecated by October 2019, which is probably like next month, and soon to be discontinued after a year. So it's likely, but if it happens, and that means that you only have 1 year and a month for your users to start migrating to the new interface. So you have to initiate with the users, having the right conversation. What is the unified interface and how do we go to that unified interface? And why are we transitioning to the unified interface? Have a good initiate with the users and explore where do you start, how do you start. It's like having a test application and let them experience group a pilot user, and all these pilot super admin users experience the new interface first and get the feedback and iteratively improve the transition. And after that, start transitioning more and more people on board. One of the advice is to build a model-driven app for each group of users and go live, do the transition with each group of users. And then finally optimize the existing functionalities and utilize all these new features. And instead of just taking the whole legacy web client, the whole app, move it across to unified interface, break down into different model-driven apps, make use of these custom controls to enhance the user experience. So where do you start? When should I start? So the best time to start was yesterday. The next best time to start is now. But not now, probably Monday. We start talk with the users on Monday to see how to start initiate the conversation about the transition. So there are a few transition strategies that Microsoft has advised in that unified interface playbook. And so probably start off by turning off the unified interface only setting in the dev environment and see what's broken, what is working, what are the things that we need to change, and build a comprehensive user adoption strategy, as I mentioned, how to approach the users and making the transition smoother. And another thing is hybrid experience, so that the users have access to the whole legacy web client and the new unified interface at the same time, so that whatever functionalities that they can really do, like editing the product contract, you have to go back to the legacy web client. So give them a little bit of a hybrid experience. So get them while they are trying to familiar with the new unified interface. And as I mentioned, set up the pilot user group who are more technical savvy people who are really willing to try the new things, get those people on board and let them try the unified interface and get the feedback from them first. And as I mentioned, is for the new projects that start off with the new unified interface. And another thing is you can also teach them a couple of tips and tricks in the unified interface that you can only do to enhance their productivity. And one of them is that's how you navigate through the record set in the unified interface. So in the previous legacy web client, when we are in the record, when we open up the record from review, and if we want to go to the next record or previous record, we usually have to press that up and down arrow at the right top corner. But in the unified interface, there is that arrow on top, which expands up with record sets. So from that record set, you can go through, navigate through different records quite easily. So there's a YouTube link for instruction on how to do it. And then the business process flow in the defined interface is cascaded by default. So that means you have to hover to each step, each stage to see the steps in the business process flow. But if you want to see them permanently on the screen, you can use this icon to pin the stage flyout onto the right hand side of the screen. So that's where if you have like 10 steps in your stage, and you can do that. So that's not only for the users, there are also a change for the system customizers and developers as well. So the first thing is review the old deprecated APIs, deprecated functionalities like dialogues and JavaScript client API, review those and replace them during that migration transition. And one of the best tips is to run the solution checker from the new RS Maker portal, and you can see what are the Microsoft they have recommended. What are these things are deprecated? You are not following this practice, so you can make those changes based on the advice and take advantage of the new features, just like embedding canvas apps or custom control framework. And also the change in the custom entity icons. So previously it was 2 sizes of the PNGs, and now you want to replace all these icons. And another thing that system customizer encounter in the unified interface is like how to access the advanced settings. Like I had to Google it. Where's my how to go to solutions or customize the system now? So if you're just wondering like me, there's an advanced setting on top of the right hand corner that will open up the settings only page where you can edit. Okay, so we'll move on to the RS Maker portal. So not only the space for the users are improved, the admin center there also changed in admin center. So this is the old admin center, and this is how the new admin center that we all have to use in the future. And that's where you can see a lot of the system settings. So whatever system settings which are not available, it shows with this icon. That means it opens up in the new tab with the legacy web client. But most of the system settings are there, and also whenever you want to upgrade to the new Microsoft Wave 1, Wave 2 release, all these new settings will only be available in the new admin portal. And this is This is the demo session, so I'm going to show you what are the good things about the new entity designer and the new form designer and view designer. So this new entity designer can be accessible by makes.forest.com. So have any one of you start using it? How is it?
Sometimes you not trying to
Yeah, that's my same feeling too, but it's gonna be getting there. So, but the thing is, we have to, like, some of the things cannot be done in the old designer, and some of the things cannot be done in a new designer. So we need to know what we are going to do, and we have to go to the right place. So just like adding the Power Apps or Flow, so AI Builder, we need to go to this makes the Power Apps module. So there's the data section, but this is quite similar to how we customize the entities in the default solution. So I recommend just to view and not to make changes directly to the entity, some option sets and all these things here. But if you want to make any changes, you can create a new solution. It is just like the old Microsoft Solution Designer. So let's say if we want to create a new entity, so when we create the entity is provisioned in the background, so we can start adding the new fields before even the entity is ready yet. So that means we don't have to wait for the whole entity to be created in the database backend. So, and then we can just start adding the fields. Once the entity is provisioned in the background, you will see this message. And at that time, you can start adding the views, forms, and other parts of the entity. Yeah. And this form designer is when you create an attribute or when you delete or rename whatever you have done, it is only done at this client level. You need to save you need to click to the save button in order to be actually created in the server side. So if you just create a bunch of records, attributes, but you don't like them, you want to go back, you can just discard all of them, or you create all of them at once. So it's good and bad. It's good in the way that attribute creating is faster. You can create one by one quickly. We don't have to wait for the attribute to be created, have a frozen screen. But bad things, if you just miss out or you just close the tab or navigate away, whatever you have done will be gone. So, and there is one thing that can only be done in the new solution designer is there's an auto number field. Oh yeah, here. So Microsoft introduced the auto number for custom entities way back few versions ago, but it's only available through SDK, and we had to use XRM toolbox to use the set up this auto number now, and you can use this in the just by on the interface. And we can also, this is the primary attribute of the field. So we can also change the primary field to the auto number as well. So yeah, we don't have to use a workflow or plugin to replicate the auto number back to the primary field. Yeah, so, and whenever there's anything that you can do in this year, you can just, there's a button, switch to classic. Yeah, it's very fun. And you just click and go back and do it in the classic UI. So next one is the form designer. So they call it WYSIWYG form designer. What you see is what you get, because it's literally rendering, showing how it is going to be seen on the actual form. So let's say if you hide the tab here, and it's gone. It's gone in the designer, but you can still see those tabs in the tree view, and you can unhide it. So it's literally showing how the form is going to show to the user in the end result. And that's tree view. With a tree view, you can actually see what are the fields and what are the section steps within the form. So it's quite helpful to see as an overview of the whole form. And we can add some sort of first-party custom controls here, just like linear slider, flip switch, and all these things. So, and so let's say, as I mentioned, what you see is what you get. So if you hide the label, it will be hidden. If you make it read-only, it will be like show as a read-only field. And here you can undo and redo the changes that you have done. So whatever you have done, you can just undo it. And it's not only that, just in my previous slide, I mentioned there's a change in the quick create form. Change, instead of 3 columns, is unified interface is only showing 1 column. So the new form designers are all optimized to the unified interface. So how it is going to be shown as a different tabs in the unified interface. So if you are really designing for the unified interface view, it's really I encourage you guys to do it in this new form designer, because if you see in the quick create form, you can see it how it is going to be seen in the unified interface. But if you go back to the classic form designer, it shows the previous one, which is not going to be relevant with what you actually see it as an end result in the unified interface. And you can zoom in and zoom out to see, and you can also change the different screen sizes to visualize how this form will render in the different devices. So it's really neat. A lot of functionalities were not there, but they're just adding, just like stuff previously, we can't add stuff within the new form designer, but they're adding more and more functionalities.
And this is the new view designer. And what I really like about this, you can preview the data. So you can preview and readjust the column, drag and drop. You don't have to select from predefined 50, 75, 100 pixel. You can set all you like, and you can just drag and drop all these new fields. And you can sort by more than 2 columns now. Previously, it's only possible with the editing in the XML, but now you can do it on the designer itself. And there's the advanced expression builder, where you can design the filter. And I believe this is how we will see the future advanced find in the unified interface. And one of the things that we can do it here is in previously Microsoft just added a new functionality to filter where the related record is not in, it's outer join not in. So, and we couldn't really do it in the previous view designer, but we can have it now. So where, for example, this records, test records doesn't contain when there is no child records of test, we can filter like this in the new designer. Yeah, so same as home designer, you can undo, redo. And the good thing is this publish button is save and publish. Same, and so you don't have to save and waste 3 seconds of your life and click publish. You can save and publish straight away. So same in the form designer too. So yeah, so just like the other form designer, if there's anything that you can't do in the view designer, you can just switch to the classic. So Microsoft announced that they will support the lesson control names, customize the name of the columns, but it was not there yet. So we'll see in the future. So there are a couple of few things that we can do, like just switch to classic to watching those. So what is the future with this unified interface? And so they are doing more and more improvements in the unified interface. So since I enrolled for Wave 2, I can see that some of these things are there. They make the connection role editable and some header improvements. So like in the form headers, previously all these long values are truncated, and it's not the case anymore in the new unified interface, new update. So all these fields will be just shrink enough to show all the data. And they also improve the density of the grid views. And there are quite a number of timeline improvements. And one of the improvements that they have done is that the anchoring error notification at the top. So when you click, it will focus to the field which is causing this error. So that's good. And there are also few changes, few improvements in other first-party apps. And these are the resources if you need to check out if you are interested in the unified interface. So what is the unified interface? And what are the
how do you transition to the unified interface? What are the things that you need to do? And there's a unified interface community under subcommunity Microsoft Forum. So I'm quite active over there. So if you have any question with unified interface, please raise a question in the forum. And if you're really going to do the transition to the unified interface for your customer or for your own organization, I really recommend you to check out these two documents from Microsoft. So some of the slide contents from my today's presentation is from the Unified Interface Playbook. So how to do this transition, and they also have a really good white paper from the Unified Interface transitions. And in last Microsoft Business Application Summit, they've covered 2 sessions about Unified Interface. One of them is partially is together with other Canvas and more driven app. But another thing is it's really, really useful. So how to make a move, and it's basically what they're trying to talk through that Microsoft Unified Interface Playbook in the PowerPoint presentation. So yeah, I'll be on LinkedIn and Twitter if you want to connect and follow me. And yeah, so now it's Q&A for 3 minutes. Any question about the fire space?
You said was you needing the access to the
Oh, okay. So this is in the this one?
Yes, that's it.
Oh, okay. So this is not actually, it is for the view designer. So in the view designer, you can actually add a web resource to and a JavaScript function to show the icons in the view column. So it is not about the JavaScript.
I can see you're saying
Yeah. From the view designer. Yeah. So you can still switch to the classic. You do all these things. Any question?
You think I'll keep to the timer?
Sorry?
In terms of turning off the existing.
That depends on how much noise the customer will make. in the end, like they're just relying on the customer. So by keeping them.
So what I heard last week, you remember last week?
Yeah.
They would actually like to know how.
Yeah.
So technically they want to do it now.
Yeah. So by not unplugging it, the only effort that they have to spend is probably support. Otherwise, other than that, I don't think they are not investing. They are losing any money for keeping them longer. So well, as long as they bridge the gaps and there's no gaps, people will be happy to move.
That's nice.
Yeah. So there's no reason to keep holding on to the old baseline. Okay, thanks everyone.
Yes.
Give him time. I want my wine glass.
Yes. Maybe it's just unplug and plug it back in. Right, when that turn off and on.
Yeah.
How's it going, everyone? We're all excited for the session. Dynamics 365 for marketing. Good, Haley. I think we'll just wait about half a minute. We'll just see if anyone wants to rock over from that session. How many of us have seen Dynamics 365 for marketing so far? One. Perfect. All right, everyone, let's get underway. We have a very, very tight 55 minutes here, and I'm going to come in just under that to make sure the next person's got some time. But first of all, my name is Michael Briggs. I'm a principal consultant at Fusion 5 down here in Christchurch. And if you can take anything away from this session, just know that I love marketing and all things marketing. Doesn't matter what product it is, it's my bread and butter. So if you got any questions after this, I'll be hanging around for lunch, so just feel free to ask them of me. Doesn't matter what product, as long as it's talking to Dynamics, I've got your back. And the other thing is, rather than doing death by PowerPoint, I want to show you guys as much of this as possible. So on all the PowerPoint slides, I'm going to shoot past them pretty quick. just because it's easy to talk about an easy designer, but it's far easier to show you an easy designer to use. So the first few slides will be the standard sort of marketing pitch in terms of where it's placed, but after that it's going to be full demo. So first of all, what we're going to cover off, so we're going to cover off the features, we're going to cover off the why for Dynamics 365 for marketing. That's really important because it's at this stage, because the licensing model, it only fits a very niche customer or installation. So I'll cover off exactly what that is. One of the biggest fundamental change that people need to get their heads around is this contact-driven marketing, because it's the way that the new world works when it comes to marketing. And as you can see here, I'll be covering off a bunch of demos and some of the core functionality. But before we get underway, let's see what we're going to cover off. So this is all the functions and features of the new Dynamics 365 for marketing. As you can see, it's very rich and has everything, all your bases is covered. And today we're going to be covering off as much as humanly possible. So as you can see there, everything in green is what I'm going to show you today with demo, and everything in orange is going to talk to, and there's a slide. And it looks like a lot, but it's totally doable. This is the 5th time I've done this, and I can always do it in 55 minutes. It just depends on how many questions get asked. So I will ask if we can sort of hold all questions to the end. I will ask a couple of times, do you have any questions? And that's because the topic I'm covering at that time, I would like to make sure that we all understand it before we move on. But when it comes into the actual functions and features of the demo, we can hold those afterwards. That would be greatly appreciated. So before we get into the why, licensing. So at the moment, the Dynamics 365 for marketing is slightly license constrictive in terms of you pay per contact you are marketing to. What that actually means is there's a very small niche where if you're a B2B organization, or if you're a B2C with a low contact base, this is perfect for you. There are extensions where you can use part of this tool. So if you're currently using a third-party tool like Click Dimensions or MailChimp or anything like that for your mail, and you're communicating to hundreds of thousands of people, but you may run small events for a subset of those organization, then using Dynamics 365 for marketing, even just to run those events, is super powerful. So I will be going into a full demo of that event management suite, but that's just something I want to call out here. And they class a contact as an individual who is interacting with something to do with Dynamics 365 for marketing suite. What that means is you can invite people using another tool, which does not count towards the count, but then the second they register for the event, that's when they start counting. It's a bit hard to get our head around, but it's something to be conscious of. So the out-of-the-box function, you get 10,000 contacts for $750 per month. And then after that, you buy them in 5,000 lot increment. So it can start getting quite expensive when you're communicating to more than 20,000 people. One more license change, you used to be able to get a Dynamics 365 for marketing instance for free if you had 10 full customer engagement seats. However, with the license change coming in October and the dropping of those 10 seats, you can no longer get a free instance of it. So if you don't have CE or Dynamics at the moment, it's $1,500 US a month. But if you currently have it, it's $750 US a month, and you get 10,000 contacts for that. So that's it for licensing. I just want to cover it off because the last thing I want you guys to be excited for this great tool, and then you realize you can't use it because you're trying to communicate to 100,000 people. In terms of why Dynamics 365 for marketing, it's really important to have a single, easy to communicate and easy to report on return on investment for your marketing dollar. So what that means is instead of having your marketing tool over here and another marketing tool over here, and then your lead tool over here and your account management tool over here, and having to try and integrate all those together to have that communication in terms of if I spend $20,000 for an event, I can prove it generated 20 leads, which prove I can converted 10% of those leads, which returned $1 million. So next time I run an event, I'm easily going to be able to get that $20,000 to run the event because there is a direct return on investment. So having one platform and one tool that's seamlessly integrated together really does help prove that ROI. It also makes smarter decisions through some of the advanced AI functionality that is in conjunction with Dynamics. So that's super, super powerful. I think we've all seen this lovely slide. It's a bit old now, but the reason this slide is really important is it's just showing that everything is in one place. And that just means that instead of having to use 3 separate tools and 3 separate rounds of training, you have one simple to use tool. For anyone in that unified interface session that we just had, you'll notice that the new marketing platform is using the new unified interface. So keep that in mind. But what does all this mean? Because if you want to go to Dynamics 365 for marketing, the last thing you want to do is a big bang approach, because projects that we typically do as a big bang approach can be a bit painful in terms of they're either extremely long, or you end up having to really upset a large number of users to deliver such great functionality. So what we always recommend is this whole walk before we run. So being able to leverage Microsoft Flow to actually automatically connect into all your other currently existing marketing tools creates still a central view of your customer engagements. So some of these lovely tools we'll all be familiar with: Eventbrite, MailChimp, Flow Approvals, Facebook. So because this is all one tool, and because it's all part of the Dynamics Microsoft suite, you can leverage all these powerful tools as well as just the features you need to inside Dynamics. So for example, these tools, you're limiting the ability to segment. Well, you can use your Dynamics 365 for marketing to segment your customers and then drive them to your third-party tools that you currently use. And then what we recommend over time is you send and check whether the tools are still needed, for example. So SurveyMonkey over there, we highly recommend you migrate across to Forms Pro. When it comes to Eventbrite or GoToMeeting, we recommend that you migrate across to the new event management platform. But sometimes, you may not be able to do that due to license constraints. So being able to connect them all into Flow is super powerful. Contact-driven marketing and matching rules. So contact-driven marketing is really important because those people that are used to marketing to your leads, and then they go and acquire Dynamics 365 for marketing, all of a sudden, I can't target to leads. What's going on? It's a complete change to think of each individual as a contact, each individual as a human. You are marketing to a human, which you are then referencing lead information. So instead of targeting your marketing towards leads, you're actually targeting it towards the humans that have leads with you. So that's really important because it's quite a fundamental change for those that are used to starting with a lead, then when they convert it to an opportunity, at that point they create a contact. With Dynamics 365 for marketing, the second you create that lead, you should be creating that contact and aligning those together. So for some organizations, it might be a bit of a change. For others, it may be how they're currently doing it. So just keep that in mind. There may be a bit of configuration needed from your partners in order to allow that to work smoothly. And then the other thing being matching rules. So a common issue is that when a user submits a form, I want it to match against their student ID. I want it to match against their mobile number. I want it to match against their email address and their first name. And there are some limitations around some other tools. So being able to use Dynamics 365 for marketing custom matching rules, you can define those how you need. So if you know that your customers are always only going to provide you an account ID and they're never going to provide you an email because your form only asks for an account ID, then you can specify a custom matching rule to that form versus the other form, which is just enter your email address here to sign up to our newsletter, in which case the matching rule will be email address only. So where that comes really handy is being able to customize those matching rules to your heart's content and to have different forms using different matching rules. Now, before we get into it, this is a point I told you before. I want to ask, are there any questions about what I've just shown you now? We all understand the contact-driven marketing concepts?
Matching rules. You said that we can do custom matching rules based on these whatever information combination. So does that apply to the segmentation?
So the segmentation allows you to apply those same rules when defining your segmentation, but when it comes to the matching rules, it's more for the submission of forms. So when you're defining your matching rules, your segmentation, which I'll show you, this first demo part I'm going to show you, you can define any logic you want. You're not constrained to just email address. So, any other questions?
So are you bothering to create leads now, or are you pretty much going straight until you create the content?
No, the content-driven marketing still, you do define leads, because a lead is an expression of interest still. So but what you're doing instead is anytime a lead is created, you're creating the contact at the same time, and then you're tracking the true human. So when that lead gets disqualified, your human still exists. And so when that sales-driven lead is ready for another one, you can actually see that flow. So yeah, we're not at the point where we're dumping leads, but we are at the point now where if you don't want to use leads, instead you want to use your own custom entity, which does something completely different, you can now do that without the need to follow that standard Microsoft sales process, which is lead, conversion to opportunity, which creates a contact. So it just gives you that open flexibility, but you do have to make sure you're creating that lead, that contact per lead, and this is there is a bit of configuration needed to be done.
Contact per lead or contact per multiple?
Contact doing multiple leads, sorry. So every lead then has to attach at least itself to a contact. And the reason is that humans, you should only ever represent that human once in your database, right? And so that human is that contact. After that, it's an expression of interest, which is the lead. So as I said before, I don't want to turn into this death by PowerPoint, but what I will do is at least to show you the high-level bullet points in terms of talking about it being simple and no code. It's far easier to show that. Talking about the professional templates, again, wouldn't you like to see those templates? So we're just going to shoot past this slide and just go straight into the demo. So before we start any email, we need to think about how and who are we sending that email to. So as I go through this demo, everything is going to relate to the Dynamics 365 Wellington event. So we are going to start by segmenting our event invitation to find everyone in Wellington who is not unsubscribed from events. So what we do is here, very simply using Dynamics, you create a new segment. Apologize for any latency issues. I am tethering off my phone. So in here, what you can do is you can easily define your set of logic rules. So what we're going to do is, for this case, we're going to go, hey, find everyone who is in Wellington. So off the bat, we can very simply determine, without having to hit results, we can find out exactly how many people in my database currently live in Wellington. And as you can see, there's 95. Now, some of the really cool, powerful features of this new segmentation is you can then use a union, exclusion, or intersection to expand or remove people from the segmentation. So what I want to do is, because we're good marketers and we don't like communicating to people that have unsubscribed, I want to now remove anyone who is unsubscribed from marketing-based events. But what I will just pause quickly and show you is that you can then have the flexibility, as we were talking before about leads. So this is where you can pull in, bring me all contacts who are in Wellington that have a lead related to opportunity ABC. So you can expand to any of those out-of-the-box functions, and then also any of the direct connections of an event. So event preference equals unsubscribe. So now we can see we go from 95 to 86. So now we've got our true segmentation of who we're going to invite along to our event management. The other benefit to this is being able to graphically see this. This is super handy for those that don't want to worry about getting into the detail. They just want to see graphically, what does that look like? So you can see we have started with a large volume of people, and then start to exclude a subset of people. As you grow this, it becomes very graphical in terms of showing you what sort of volume of people you're trying to attend or add to the segmentation. But the other benefit is some of us like code. It's just a fact of life. Some of us are graphical and some of us are code driven. So you can also then, from a code point of view, see what it looks like and actually start entering in your own custom without needing to use the drag and drop design. So as you can see, really, really simple. So now we have our segmentation. We can go through and save it and give it a name, but we don't got time for that. We've only got 54 minutes. So let's skip that part, but we could give it a pretty name. We could create lots of them, real simple. But now let's show the email side of things, because I've got my segmentation. I now want to invite these people to my email, to my event. So straight off the bat, you'll see Dynamics 365 Marketing has a range of templates. This is super handy because it does a lot of that legwork for you, without the need for you to have to worry about starting from a blank page and designing it. I can actually straight off the bat pick in one of the out-of-the-box Microsoft templates that come included with Dynamics 365 Marketing. So as you can see, I've always wanted to pick a dog, but unfortunately it's not an event invite, it's a happy birthday email, but you can see there's some really, really cool simple to use templates. But we can also then just go and filter, because as any marketer knows, they're going to end up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of templates, and they don't want to have to scroll through hundreds of templates to find it. So being able to use types to actually filter in. So now we can actually go filter all these just by my event. Straight off the bat, I can see I've got myself a subset of those templates, and I can say, this one here is the one I want to use. So now that I've got my template, I can come in here and personalize it, but I want to actually go and send that email. So I come up, create a new marketing email. Straight off the bat, just like I showed you before, template list pops up. I'm allowed to filter it. I filter it by the event purpose. And I can see I would like to use this one here. And just like that, you'll start to see the WYSIWYG editor start to populate. Now, one thing to note, the WYSIWYG editor, which is what you see is what you get, used to be really bad, but thankfully Microsoft has improved it to the point where it's a usable tool. You used to need to know a bit of HTML in terms of if you wanted to expand this and put columns in there. But now you can actually, in the next release, you'll be able to put columns and expand a single column into multiple columns without the need to go into HTML. So as time goes on, the need to know a little bit of HTML is slowly going to be removed as they enrich this editor. So straight off the bat, I know that I'm going to invite people along to the event, so I can change my template image for a nice Dynamics 365 logoed image, which will appear. So as you can see, I didn't have to worry about what the dimensions of the image were. I was just able to very quickly go into the image repository and change this image. Now it's obviously not as quick as I'm talking, so let's try this one more time. Clearly didn't pray to the demigods hard enough this morning. All I have to say is, there it is. So your experience will vary. Obviously, I'm just running on a 4G connection, so it is got a bit of latency. But as you can see, very simple, easy to use. And I can then start expanding my template. I can, for example, include a marketing page. We've got this down here. Let's just say I want to get rid of that one. I want to put my own one in. So we can then just dump this anywhere we need. And then this automatically connects into my marketing pages. So I can now pick from the list of marketing pages and create that connection there. And very simply, without me doing any code, let's put a nice button in here. And because this is a drag and drop, what you see is what you get editor, I can come in here and I can personalize this. Now, one thing you'll know as I start presenting this is my ability to be spatially aware and use colors is quite poor, but at least it shows concept. So for example, if I want to go and change these background colors, I can go ahead and do that without the need to enter any form of code. So it's slowly going to look uglier and uglier as I turn it from Microsoft's beautiful template to my hideous one. But it really is, it's to show concept. And very simply, I can change all my colors and all my text styles without needing to go into HTML. This is all fine and dandy, but wouldn't it be great if we could personalize? And of course we can personalize. So what we may want to do in here is inside this text box, we may want to go and put in, hi Michael, right? But we don't know it's Michael, so what we want to do is we want to start using variables from inside CRM. So very easily, I can click, I can start using the context menu to work out exactly what I'm. So I want to use a contact, and then I can then pull in related information. So when we talk about leads, I could start pulling in information from that lead. Or alternatively, I could just bring in properties directly from, so I could do it here. And just like that, contact full name. So when this goes out to your thousands of people in your database, it's going to at least personalize it to their needs. Now, one thing I want to call out, which it can't do yet, for anyone that uses other tools out there, there's a concept of dynamic content within inside the body of an email. That is not supported yet. But what we recommend doing is if you do need to deliver that functionality, is you find the template and use customer journey, which is what I'll show you later, to determine which email gets sent to which person. But just please be aware, at this stage, there is no dynamic content within inside the body of the email in terms of if male, show image, if female, show this image, or if city equals Auckland, show the Auckland invitation details, if city equals Wellington, show the Wellington information details. So just want to call that out. The other benefit is, and I love this, is the HTML editor is actually colored. So it actually is far more usable. So anyone out there who needs to be able to easily write HTML and doesn't like looking at this static HTML, they at least get a rich editor to do so. And just like we saw before, previous in the other box, email functionality, there is also the preview functionality. So what you can do is you can actually have a look at what this email is going to look like on a mobile device, what this email is going to look like on a tablet device. I'm just going to move my phone to pray for a better connection spot. And as you can see, it's real pretty. There we are. Talked to it before it came. But as you can see, you can then switch between what's going to look like on a tablet versus what's going to look like on a desktop versus what's going to look like on mobile. So straight off the bat, you can see, perfect, it looks good on my mobile. But I can also actually have a look and make this look like a given person. So you know how I had in here their first name and last name? Well, I can actually test what it's going to look like on a given contact. So I can, for example, type in Hamish, Hamish Shields, and I can see what this would look like when Hamish Shields receives it. So as you can see, when it loads, it will say, hi, Hamish Shields. Hi, Michelle. And the other thing that's super powerful is the ability to inbox preview. This is using litmus tests. And what that does is it actually will show you what this email looks like on a device. So you can go through when you run an inbox preview and you can go show me what this email is going to look like on Gmail. Show me what this email is going to look like on Hotmail. Unfortunately, I think they've removed Lotus Notes. So if you've got any customers using Lotus Notes, apologies, there is no way to litmus test that anymore. But I can tell you that if they're using Lotus Notes, they've got bigger problems. So maybe an upsell potential. So that's the email editor. As you can see, it's rich in terms of what you see is what you get, but there are still some things you need to do via HTML, so keep that in mind. But you can then just drag and drop any of these components on the right-hand side into the body of the email. And as you do so, you'll see it very simply shows you where's it going to appear. So this shows you it's going to appear outside the inner block because the purple. This shows it's going to appear inside. So just like that, and then being able to change it, do your heart's content before to work, all that sort of stuff. Now, I'm going to allow 2 questions here because last time I got stuck with about 1 million questions at this point. So, 2 questions is: are there any questions out there for the email editor? No, I'm going to take that as I've shown you everything you need to see. Is that fair call? Can I get a couple of nods out there? Yep. Okay, excellent. So that's the email marketing. Really, really super powerful. But email marketing is not a marketing automation tool. MailChimp does email marketing. It is far more than that. So let's start looking into some of the more advanced features. Marketing pages and forms. With this, be aware you do need a portals license. So if you're buying Dynamics 365 for marketing, you do get a portal license automatically included. But if you got the free version, it does not include a portal license. So if you've got the 2K free trial and you want to play around with event management or marketing pages, you will have to buy a portal page. Again, I could talk to all this lovely stuff: simple, no code, consistent, ready to use forms, pre-built. But I think you guys would, again, it's far easier to show you this than talk to this. All this information is really readily available online. But I think you guys want to see what it actually looks like. So I'm not going to spend any time on marketing pages because marketing pages at the end of the day are flat pages that you enrich with other data. But just know there is a full list of pre-built ones that you can use. What I want to spend a bit of time is actually on showing you a form. So anyone who's had fun building forms in marketing context, I see this all the time. They don't really, often if you're using a third-party tool and you're trying to integrate it, if you're not proficient at CSS, you can sometimes make the forms look a bit ugly. Let's pick a couple of these templates that still look a bit ugly. There's a one here. We've all seen these forms. Very square, blocky, don't align with any of the rest of your website. So the cool thing with the Dynamics 365 for marketing is you do get pre-built a range of styles. So straight off the bat, you can find the one that best aligns to your business, and you can pick one. So we are living in a curved world these days. So this one here would be the prime example. So I can just go ahead and click this. And as you can see, straight off the bat, I've got myself a really simple form. So in this form, I can drag, just like I could with the email, I can drag a selection of fields and sort of just HTML styles into this. I can include reset buttons, I can include captures, I can include a post-subscription event, so anyone that submits it, actually what's going to happen next. I can build all that into a flow. But as you can see, very, very easy just to drag and drop as you need relevant fields onto the form. Any of the existing fields you can see are all mapped. So as you can see over there, this contact has been mapped. Sorry, this field phone number has been mapped to telephone on contact and telephone on lead. What that means is that very, very simple in terms of when a new form is submitted, if you want to create a new lead or update a contact, you can very easily map any field, whether it be custom or any other box field. The benefit as well, all the other box fields that you'd imagine have already been built for you. So you don't have to worry about first name, last name, email address, phone. But if you have that unique customer ID, you can build that field in here and you can map it across automatically into a contact record so that when the form is submitted, that information is automatically transposed into that contact record. As you can see, you can also do cool things like defaulting a value. So if you're, for example, want to put, for example, an example like that to sort of give them an idea of what it should look like, you can do that very easily. You can also default things. So if they're click on a Wellington event registration, you can default the city to Wellington to save users from having to pre-populate it. And as you can see, the world's your oyster in terms of building fields. So you can add any number of fields you want. Those fields don't have to be mapped to leads and contacts. You can just build a field to capture it for purpose solely on this marketing form. Just like before, for those people that love HTML and around the marketers that love HTML, they can continue to live in their HTML world. There's nothing wrong with that. We always like this because it's a hybrid approach. You can get your template built in HTML, and then your business actually get to edit the template in the real world. What that does is actually reduces cost on third-party agencies. So instead of having to get all your agencies to build all your HTML templates, you just get them to build the frames of the templates, and then you come in here and you modify those frames accordingly. The other thing, remember I was talking about matching logic. So as I said to you, you can then define what match logic to use when this form is submitted. So when it's just email address, perfect, nice and simple, matching strategy on email address. But for those event registration, you may have coupon codes. You can then use this to match those coupon codes to special event registration records if you need to. Also as well, the concept is, on a form submission, it's a new lead, being able to create a lead, and then obviously the contact will automatically be created as well. I'll keep it, since we're doing quite okay for time. Any questions? Again, no more than 2 on forms.
Your last one where you said you will create the lead, mention email, and you say that there's no contact for that email address. So then it wouldn't create a new contact if it found one, but would create the lead.
It would be correct. So it would create the new, and if it was a new lead that didn't have a contact, it would create the contact as well.
Yes, but if it finds the contact.
If it finds a contact, it won't create the contact, correct. It'll just create the lead if you define it to do so. If you don't define it to do so, it'll just be a form submission on that contact. Yeah, so if you're thinking and update your details, you don't want to create a lead off the update your details, so you won't force it to create a new lead. But if it was a event registration, you may want it to capture new people as leads. You can also build in, because you're talking about dynamics here, you can also build in any logic you want by the workflow plugin engine. So even if the tool doesn't do it out of the box, you can very easily circumvent that by just using a workflow and a bit of code. Any other questions? No? Covering it off so far so well? Yeah. As I said, a lot of content, so I apologize if it feels like I'm rushing. I'm just a little. Customer journeys. So why is customer journey mapping so important? Gone are the days where we send an email to 20,000 people and go, cool, I'm glad they got it. I can see they've got it. I can interact with the fact that 20% of them have opened. What we recommend these days is building a customized journey off the back of it. So when an email is received, you want the person to receive it, right? And you want the person to interact with it. So being able to check automatically if the person's opened it, and if they haven't opened it within 3 days, send them another version of it, is really, really powerful. Because then it maximizes the exposure to your template. Because sometimes that email, you're just busy at the time, the email comes in, you don't realize, you ignore it. I'm telling you, most people do not go back to an email. Statistics prove this, older than day old. If you've missed them on that first opportunity when they're checking that mailbox and then it ends up in the bottom of their feed, you've lost them. So what we recommend is using automation to then send them another copy. But you can just send them the same one and I'm sure they won't worry, but it's personalizing that, make it fun, sorry we missed you, that sort of stuff. So then having a slight variation on the first template so that they don't feel like they're being hounded. So you can kind of position it a bit better because they may have received it, they may have opened it and you're trying to get a click. So then being able to build a custom journey to send them another copy saying, come on, register, really, really sort of powerful. But just like everything else I'm showing you today, we don't want you to have to think of that straight off the bat. We want you to be able to just build it from a template. So there are pre-built journey templates, as you can see. And so what I'm going to do is show you when we build a new customer journey, what that actually looks like from picking from a template. So again, like everything else we've been doing today, we are doing an event template. So as you can see, a range of templates. I'm going to click event management. I'm going to click select. And straight off the bat, you're going to see I've got myself a structure for a customer journey. Now, before you build one of these, the easiest way we recommend marketing teams build this is to go into a room, get a big whiteboard, and map it out on that whiteboard. Because at that point, it's really easy to move stuff around and really easy to have a collective conversation about what you think should happen. Because the other most common thing that people forget about is the negative result. People all, when they click it, you've got to ask yourself, what happens when they don't click it? Oh, but they will, okay. What happens if they don't? So always ask that negative scenario. They're going to register for the event. What if they don't? No, they will register for the event. Okay, think about the negative scenario. So as you go and build this, you start catering to the negative scenario. So we started by building segmentation. We sent the email out, and then we've got a checkpoint. Have they registered? If they haven't registered, have they opened it? If they haven't opened it, we've got do nothing. But we may decide that now, if they haven't opened it, let's create an activity for someone to actually pick up the phone and call us, because this is maybe a really important event for people to attend. So you can actually then personalize this journey, automatically create activity. So you don't have to worry about marketers, so then they're creating advanced find filters the day before an event and figure out who isn't. You just automatically build it into a logic so that when the time comes for the day before the event and you need to send the "we can't wait to see you" email, you're just building it into this logic. So for example, wait to the event, and then on the event day, you send them an email saying, "we can't wait to see you." But then being able to personalize it even further and go, okay, because with the new event management module, we can do check-ins and we can do QR code scanning. Wouldn't it be great to personalize the experience to if they attended? So if they attended, we'll send them a thank you email, and then we'll put a scheduled trigger to wait before sending them a post-event survey. But then for those that didn't attend but had registered, because this is the did not attend but had registered route, you would then potentially either create an activity for someone to call them and go, "Hey, look, we missed you at the event," or you may even just send them an email saying, "Sorry, we missed you at the event. Please click here for a copy of the recording." But being able to build this all in one flow, all via a drag and drop editor, is super handy. So just like that, with a couple of clicks and drag and drop editor, I've been able to build a very easily repeatable event management journey, which I can now clone for all my future events. The benefit to this is every individual travels at their own pace. So if you add 10,000 people into this journey, those 10,000 people are traveling at their own pace. They're not having to wait for everyone to be at a certain stage before the next trigger happens. Obviously, with things like if you have that registered, they will all wait till the day of the event. But everything else is everyone's traveling down their own journey. This is just an event management one, but you can use it for everything. We even recommend you build a standard email template for a customer journey for any important outbound email, because again, you want people to receive it, you want people to interact with it. So being able to, it could be a warranty recall, right? So you're running doing a recall on a washing machine, for example. You need that people to see that. So then maybe very barging or attacking them a lot with a lot of emails, but actually being able to force an email to continue to go to them on a monthly basis until they actually acknowledge that they either open the email or actually click on the email. Super powerful. Also building a nurture. So you could start with a single email, and then based on where they're clicking with inside that email, you can send them more personalized emails. So anyone doing content marketing, this is incredibly powerful for determining what content to share with them next. Because if we know what they're clicking on, we know what they're interested in. If we know what they're interested in, we can service that information to them without them needing to ask for it. And that is a nice segue onto lead scoring when you get onto it. But customer journey, incredibly powerful, incredibly custom. Got any questions?
When you get this customer journey live, does it send this email to the junk email box or the primary inbox?
That's a good question. So just like other tools out there, it is designed to get to the person's mailbox. So it'll only appear in junk. So this is one of those tough questions we get as marketers. We can't control what Gmail do to build in their internal logic to identify what junk mail looks like. So there's no way that Microsoft or any other platform will ever be able to get away or get in front of Gmail, because Gmail is always going to be trying to work to identify things as spam. But when you think about the most standard corporate, most of those corporates don't have that same level of auto spamming. So it is designed to get to the person, not to end up in the spam inbox.
Is there a spam checker built into it?
The spam checker is only built into the preview. Yeah, so when you do an inbox preview, you get a spam checker, but correct. And again, one of the great functions of other tools out there that are not yet available on Dynamics 365 Marketing. Now, I am conscious of time. As I said to you, it's a very tight session. So what are we looking at? We're looking at another 13 minutes, which is good because last time I had 4 minutes to cover event management and that was all I needed. But because I didn't want to rush too much today, I've actually pre-built a custom scoring in my demo environment, just so that I don't have to and take up 5 minutes of your life while I click around creating custom scoring. So what is Roland? Ignore the title. This is custom scoring. That's my bad. So it allows you to automatically create rules and logic to score interactions with your marketing activities. Why is that super powerful? Because if you're trying to sell a product, you don't want to have your salespeople calling people that are not interacting with your brand. If you're sending an email to 1,000 people, you don't want every salesperson to call every single person who's received an email. But what you do want to do is you want those interactions to those emails, to the websites, to the event registrations, to drive the person putting their own hand up, and what we call that is lead scoring. So we then give scores for different interactions. So maybe you register for an event, and we give you an arbitrary number of 75 points. You open an email, we give you 10 points. You click 3 times within a given month, we give you 50 points. You then use those points to define a threshold before the person is sales ready, which then automatically generates a sales ready lead for the person. But also, let me just show you what that looks like because it's super, super powerful. So I've opened the oven and here's what I prepared earlier. But I've also set score and grading. So in this scenario here, I've set 100 as being my threshold because a single event registration isn't enough to qualify them, but maybe an event registration and a couple of clicks. So I've got here 3 clicks in a given month. So what does that look like? So the entity is email clicked at least 3 times in a 3-month period. Just change that. And so it's a 1-month period. I'm giving them 50 points if that happens. Then I've got another one. If they open an email, any email, give them 10 points. Make sense? You're scoring them. They're opening your emails. They're interacting with your brand. We need to reward them. So, event registration. Again, if they're registering for an event, I'm going to give them 25 points. But if they actually attend the event, I'm going to give 75. Because if I'm that interested that I'm coming to your events, chances are I'm interested in your product in some way, shape, or form. So being able to identify registration and a check-in will get you 100 points, which will then automatically, as we said before, convert you as a sales ready score when it gets to 100. But then when I go to my contact record and I want to compare contact A and contact B, I can very easily see that for the key customer scoring, this customer, because they've registered an event, is now graded A. So on the contact record, I'll have key customer scoring, grade A. But I still want to know the other grade. So, then you can rate. So then if my point threshold is between 50 and 100, I don't want to, for example, you wanted to do, they have 0 points. Let's set up a grade D. So let's do that 1, D. So just like that. Well, let's make it prettier with a capital D. So I've been able to very easily, by a drag and drop, create some custom scoring to identify when a sales ready lead is available, to then go through and grade every single person that is interacted with one of these scenarios to easily identify what a good customer is or what an interactive customer is. You can also use this to join it up with things like Net Promoter Score, because what you'll tend to notice is that your 10s and your promoters are typically going to be your grade A's. Your detractors are not going to be looking at your email, or they will be looking at your email just so they can pick out things to be a better detractor. But you can actually use this to really, really hone in on what a good customer looks like and what a bad customer looks like. So super, super powerful. Now, I actually have a minute or so to ask some questions. So guys, any questions before I get on to event management?
open email.
Yes.
Because in that, you can turn off the option to private read when you're in print, which is what I do.
Yep.
And on reading my emails, I can actually change the status. That's it. I'm bypassing the open email every time.
And you'll see that's also another reason why you typically don't give high points for an open, because an open doesn't really have much weight. I mean, going through my inbox and just clicking through my emails, it's an open, it's marked as a read. It doesn't mean I've actually read it, it just means I'm marked as read. It also means if you turn off images on from sending that information back, you can also prevent it. So definitely email statistics are not foolproof, but what I can say is every single email provider has the exact same preventation or restrictions. Just like web tracking, you can turn off cookies and all your web tracking breaks. But unfortunately, we're lucky that that's not a high percentage of user base. We typically find that as the technical user base. And so building your plan accordingly to adjust for things like that, because you know the click, you know if you're registering an event. So it's not foolproof for sure, but it does at least give you a rough indication. Because if all you're doing is reading the emails, then your score will be equivalent, right? So 10 points would mean you'd have to read 10 emails alone before you got classified as. So that's also another reason, and this is a bit of a marketing trick for everyone out there, why emails that are marketing driven have a click here to read more. Tell you what, it's not to make the spacing better on the email. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's so that you're clicking, you're going to the website, you clicked on it, I know exactly what you're interested in. I can now segment you, go, okay, perfect, he's interested in Dynamics 365 for marketing because he clicked on read more. So now I've segmented you, and when I built that customer journey, the next email you get, funnily enough, will be targeted at Dynamics 365 for marketing, and you'll be like, oh, this is exactly what I want to read. So that is why marketing is incredibly powerful and creepy at the same time. And no matter what, we'll never be able to prevent those people that don't want to be tracked. It is just the fact of life, and that is a perfect scenario to create.
Just on that web tracking, how well is this marketing breaking with web tracking, putting a tracking script on the web pages?
I'll put it this way, nowhere near as good as other products on the market. To the point where at the moment we'd recommend you use a third party for that. Or work with your agency to actually bring in API calls. Because the other thing it doesn't do very well is like dynamic web content. So, being able to know that a person's gone to your website and they're looking at Dynamics 365 for marketing. So next time they come to your website, instead of showing you all the Dynamics suite, it's dynamically content driven to you as a Dynamics 365 for marketing interest. So we recommend anyone that's interested in that level, assess that as part of your reviewing of what a good marketing product's going to be good for you. And if it's a core functional requirement, potentially either look at a replacement for that one feature or look at a tool that will do it better. I know there are other tools out there. So for example, Click Dimensions do that automatically, and then you can build a lot of great logic in that. So there are other tools out there that do it. But the thing with this Dynamics 365 marketing, the reason it's quite powerful is we're only a year deep and we've got a lot of functionality. And so it's a time-based event. So as time goes on, it's going to get richer and richer and richer and richer. HTML editor is going to be less of a requirement, and things are going to slowly become a lot more rich in that respect. Now, because I thought I had a bit too much time, which is fine, I'm now down to a 4-minute presentation on event management, which is fine because I've done it before. So let's go, guys. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to ask any questions until the very, very end. So events, why is it super powerful? Well, what I'm going to show you here was 4 hours of effort total, and 3.5 of that hours was copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. You'll see why. I have all the speakers at the Wellington event. I have all the sessions at the Wellington event. So let's go into it. So in Dynamics, without the need to use third-party tools, I'm building it all with inside. So I'm using the business process flow, which I could customize to define the event name, to define what I'm trying to do, define the expected number of recipients, even defining the time, start, end date. I'm then automatically being guided through what I need to do. So defining sessions, for example. So all of this, then from the business process flow, like everything else in CRM, is all managed within inside the page itself. So as you can see, you can use custom URLs, or you can use the out-of-the-box URL. You can then come through and define and captures, all that sort of good stuff, but we don't care about that. Michael, how rich is it in terms of my event registration? So first of all, you can allow registrants to be able to customize their own event timetable, right? So that first tick box up there allows, and I will show you that live, when I'm picking my sessions to attend, it starts building a session count, and it's not just registered for the event, it's registering by session. I then get a really beautiful graphical representation about the D365 Saturday that happened 2 weeks ago. As you can see, they had 3 streams here, which is why there's three sessions in the same column. Today we've only got 2. As you can see, everyone's going to come to take initiative with the stuff marketing. It's a great session, I've heard. But that's just a graphical representation because some people like to see it from a calendar view. But the actual enterers of this data, well, they're just going to enter it as sessions, which is just records within inside CRM. So you create a new session, you define who's presenting that session, start end date, any buildings, rooms, passes. Super handy because then you can define session tracks. So just like today, we've got 2 tracks. Last week we had, or 2 weeks ago we had 3, and the general being event registration and sign up, that sort of stuff. So I'm now being able to classify all those sessions against these events. For all those sessions, I've been able to define speakers. All that data has just come from CRM. I've just uploaded the images into CRM. I'm not using another portal, I'm not using another site. Everything you're seeing is just done inside CRM. I then can define all my speakers. As you can see, all my speakers, there were 19 of them. And then last and most importantly, if we're going to run events, we need to be paid, right? Or we need to make money, or we need to be able to pay for things to happen. So being able to capture sponsors. One thing I haven't shown here is passes. So in the Dynamics 365 event management, you can also set up passes. You may have VIP passes, which allow them to only register for certain events. You may have gold, silver. So you can set up passes for a range of restrictions like number of sessions registered for, type of sessions registered, all able to be built. So this is all fine. What about registrations or QR codes? So being able to have a registration. So Bill Jones registered for an event. Once he registered for the event, he ended up with a QR code, which we were able to print on a name tag. Then on the day, he rocked in with his name tag, we scanned his name tag, he was then checked in. As we saw in that automation before, he's now going to get a post-event survey because he checked in. But being able to do that all out of the box without needing custom code, again, remember, this is about half hour of config, 3.5 hours of copy paste. What does that look like? This is what it looks like. So all this information has come directly from CRM. I haven't built anything in the portal itself. Nothing you're seeing here has been built by a code or in the portal. This is all out of the box. So as you can see, here are all my sessions. Looks like I'm using the same session as last time. As you can see, there's already 4 items in my cart. But as you can see, I can then add sessions. I can start building my list of sessions that I'm going to attend on this given day. But I may not know what sessions, I may just know which track I'm interested in. So I can then put on my session tracks, and that will give me the easy ability to flip between business, technical, and as you can see, business, you can then see take the initiative of Dynamics 365 Python. But I actually don't care about that. I just want to go, there's a great good man here called Hamish Shields. I just want to attend his session. So let's just have a look at the speakers. Here are all the speakers. Perfect. You can see me, which was really weird copying and pasting my own name. I should have just written it. But then you can see Hamish. So Hamish Shields has a blog, he has a LinkedIn, but he also is running a session. Then we can click and see a lot more information about him. And then obviously, as I said to you before, the sponsors. Graphically I'm hopeless, so apologies for that, not looking very pretty. But you can kind of get it. I think that shows a very good gist of what you can do to build just out of the box. And then now we want to register for the event, so I can very much easily register. And during the registration process, this is the last amazing feature I'm going to show you. You can add another attendees. So, you know, not just +1, but you can then go, for example, and what I'm interested in. You see here, I made it here. And now I can add another person, and I can add another person, I can add another person, and then I can delete or I can edit. So now I never do this in demos. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to do this under pressure. No. The one other common question people are going to ask me, Michael, can I take payment? Because I'm running an event, I would like to take payment. You can build the event automatically out of the box to be able to have registrations for passes and costs and everything like that. The one thing it does not give you is the payment gateway. If you want to take payment, you will need to configure and interact with a payment gateway. The other option is you do it with registering for an event, and then you can take payment, for example, on the day, depending on how you run that event. So, any questions on that event? And I took extra time. So, are we okay? The event management presentation, do we kind of understand very quickly what can be done with very little effort, all out of the box? Yeah. Any questions? No. So thank you guys so much for attending today. Apologise for it being such a rush session. I will circulate these slides and put a link up so that you can actually have a look at the two topics I didn't cover. One was market insights and one was the LinkedIn integration. So I've got slides there if you need to have a look at those. So yeah, thanks very much.
Putting your slide on. Put in June, July.
So much. And it's just so much better now. Like, it's actually what I took on as a usable product. It wasn't a usable product, like even I can understand it, and it's now actually, sorry for running over.
That's good. It's interesting.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Bet you got something out of it.
Yeah, I think that was like close to me.
If that's not working, right? What we found is that you just have to unplug it. Yeah.
We haven't drugs.
Yeah. Do you have a mic or anything?
No, I've never said stuff.
Projected voice.
Yep,
That might be a work. Sorry? This one here, it's everything is working. Ah, yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah. Cool. Am I ready? I'm not going to water. Okay, so I'll kick things off. My name's Bryce Newman. I work at Intergen as a solution architect. So today I'll be talking about Nurse Maude, or talking about the digital transformation of Nurse Maude using Dynamics CE and field service. So I'll be starting with a quick background on who Nurse Maude are, not too long, followed by a demonstration of the scheduling and mobility issues that we're facing the growing organisation. Along the way, I'm going to discuss how field service was used to address these issues and some of the things to think about if you're thinking about using field service for your business. Okay, so this is Nurse Maude there. So Nurse Maude was founded in 1896, so quite a while ago, with the mission to nurse the most marginalised in society, taken to the streets of Christchurch to provide care for the poor and sick. Just started off as just one person, hence the name of the company. Unlike hospitals, Nurse Maude would travel to those needing care, initially on foot, and then via a horse that she was given called Chip. And having the horse and cart there made things a lot easier. She could load all the gear onto it, so she didn't have to lug it on her back. So due to demand, money was raised to extend the service and employ more nurses. Nurse Maude would readily adopt new technology of the day to improve service, range, and efficiency. So in this case, the technology of the day was bicycles, which doesn't sound all that high-tech today, but back then you could travel twice as far and do twice as much. Now Nurse Maude herself, she upgraded to a car. Her car driving was described as extrovert, exuberant, and reckless, characterised by violent swerving on full throttle. Her driving was so well known by the locals that they actually made a statue dedicated to her, which shows her driving in her car with hair flying out back. And if you want to see that, it's actually at Diamond Harbour. So 120 years on, Nurse Maude is still serving the community, except now they've got over 1,000 support workers and nurses in the field, making service delivery far more complex than what it was in the early days. So what I'm going to do is try and demonstrate the scheduling complexity that Nurse Maude faces every day. So let me introduce Bob. So Bob is a Nurse Maude client. Well, he's not actually a Nurse Maude client, he's a persona of a Nurse Maude client. So he's the first persona that we actually came up with many years ago when we first started the project. So he became, during the life of the project, very, very real to the team that was delivering this. So basically any decision that was made, we'd have to assess, well, how is Bob going to view this? How's it going to affect Bob? Will Bob like this? So it's a very, very important character in the whole life of this project. So Bob is 82, 80 years old and a widower, lives alone in Linwood. Bob no longer drives due to poor eyesight and has limited mobility. He's been with Nurse Maude for 10 years due to various age-related conditions. Bob is old-fashioned about nurses, and there are some nurses that he likes and some that he won't even let in the door. Now, when I say old-fashioned, if he's got any sort of nursing care that's kind of a bit personal nature, which some are, he doesn't like male nurses. So he's older. He's allowed to sort of make these calls. It's not a call you'd make if you had a plumber, but you're allowed to do that when you're 82. So recently, Bob had a fall, injuring his leg, and required twice weekly wound care assistance from a nurse for the next 3 weeks. and the wound care will be covered by ACC. So all this information here basically feeds into basically the care that Nurse More gives and the information you need to actually provide that care. And this is Norma Nurse. She was the second persona that we actually created on the project. So she's 47 years old and has worked with Nurse Maud as a district nurse for 5 years. She loves people and enjoys helping the elderly, even Bob. She's a qualified nurse and works 4 days a week. She has a Nurse Maud fleet car and is on the road most of the time. And she likes to stick to a specific territories near where she lives, so Linwood, Shirley, Wilson. She likes working in that area without travelling too far. So if you look at the face of it, Norma Nurse is able to deliver the care that Bob needs because she services his location, she's qualified to deliver wound care, she's rostered to work the times that Bob requires care to be delivered, she's not an excluded resource, and she's not a bloke. So she's a perfect resource, right? However, she's not the only nurse available, and Bob is not the only client needing attention. These are the issues that Nurse Maud face daily. So that's Christchurch there. There are 650 nurses and support workers who are actually operating in Christchurch. So I haven't got a pin for every single one of them on there, otherwise I'll be there all day. So imagine the red pins are nurses and the blue pins are support workers. So Bob needs a nurse and not a support worker, so let's exclude those who aren't nurses. Okay, so we've just got a few nurses there. So Bob is based in Linwood. So let's zoom in on Linwood here. That's Bob sitting right in the middle. So there's 13 nurses based in Linwood. The nurse needs to be rostered on at the time of Bob's visits. So let's remove those who are not working at the time. Okay, so that leaves 8 nurses in the area. The nurse needs to be qualified to provide wound care, because not all nurses are created equal. We've all got different skills and different qualifications. You don't really want to send a nurse out to do a job that they can't technically do, otherwise bad things happen. So remove those who don't have the skills. And we'll remove the one that's left who's either on Bob's exclusion list or basically a bloke, so we'll get rid of them. Right, so now we need 5 nurses. So which nurse to pick? We can go with the obvious choice. Norma Nurse is available, and she seems fairly close on the map. Just really down the road, so it seemed like the obvious choice. However, Bob is not her only client, and she's going to be moving around during the day, so she's not always going to be starting from home locations. She's going to be starting from different locations during the day, depending on what visits she's taking. So each nurse will have about 4 to 8 visits a day, depending on the order the visits occur. So they may be close to Bob at the time of his visits, or they may actually just be on the other side of town. So if you multiply the scheduling process to cater for 4,000 different clients per day, which is what Nurse Maud are currently doing, each with different needs, different locations at different times, finding the optimal resource and route can be very, very difficult. So let me introduce Sue Scheduler. So she was our third persona. So Sue is 45 years old and has worked with Nurse Maud for 5 years. She's one of a team of schedulers. So each of the schedulers, because there's so many things in the book, they have an entire team and each focus on a different area. Her primary role is to determine which resource should be scheduled to which visit and in what order. So she has working knowledge of clients and their special needs. Like, for example, Bob has bingo on Fridays, so you'd never ever book a job for Bob on Friday afternoons, otherwise you'd ring her up and her in airful. The resources, their skills and their availability, just to understand all that, who works when. Local roads and roadworks, very, very important when you're scheduling people around town. She needs an enormous amount of working knowledge in her head to allow her to manually schedule each visit. So it's a very, very hard job. So we introduced field service and a tool called the Resource Scheduling Optimization Engine to try and make Sue's jobs easier so that she can focus on just the key important jobs, the short notice jobs, the tricky jobs, and have the system help out doing the bulk of the work. So this here is what's known as the field service schedule board. And Sue uses this to assist her with her scheduling. There's a different schedule board for each geographic area, meaning that Sue can focus on her specific area. Now you'll notice that that's not Canterbury, so I'm not getting a schedule board for Nurse Maud, otherwise it would give away all the client's details and various other things which wouldn't go down well. So the main areas of this. So on the left you can see the paths each resource is booked to travel and where the visits are located. So if you see somebody and he's travelling around in circles, you know there's probably something up, probably something that work needed. Just to the right of the map, you can see the list of all the resources that are currently available in our area to deliver work. Further to the side, you can see each booking that's in the system is represented by a block of time on the calendar. So the colour of each block indicates the status that it's currently in. So it could be waiting to be work to be delivered, it could be underway, it could be overdue, etc. The length of the block indicates how long the booking is, and there's a little weird line in front of it which indicates the estimated travel time. So you can tell based on the current location how long it's going to take them to reach the next location. The system will help actually determine that without needing knowledge in the service coordinator's head as to how long it's actually going to take them one at a time. And the white and grey background indicates the work hours. So in this case, the work hours are pretty static here. So everyone is either working from, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Whereas with Nurse Maud, the work hours are very, very personalised and individual, which introduces some difficulties. You can also zoom in on a particular resource and see whatever skills and roles that resource has. So, whether or not they're actually able to deliver the service that you're interested in delivering. So there are two ways that Sue can actually book the visit. The first is to drag an unbooked visit onto an available spot on the schedule board, and which is a quick way of creating a booking, but potentially problematic because you could actually assign it to a resource that can't actually deliver the work. So Introgen has added logic to ensure that visits can be assigned to resources who do have the available skills to deliver the work, and always should pop up and say, do you really want to do this? This is the reason why you shouldn't do this. There are certain times when, maybe there's an emergency and you want to book somebody who's actually technically not rostered on it, or say, hey, this person's not available, but you do it anyway. So it gives you that flexibility. So it's going to assist you, but not force you. The second way field service actually was going to help scheduler is she can use a process called Schedule Assist. So this will look at the visits requirements and available resources and suggest appropriate booking times. So we can see on here that Chris, she's got time available, and Matthew, he's got some time available. And Chris is only 19 minutes away from the job, whereas Matthew's 33 minutes. So I'd probably book Chris based on what I can see there. So this works really well for individual bookings and short notice changes because you can drag things around on the board, etc. But it doesn't scale up well when you've got 4,000 visits per day to book. So this is where a tool called Resource Scheduling Optimization comes in. So this is a tool that basically sits on top of field service. And what it can do is it can determine the optimum resources and routes for thousands of visits per day. It can schedule bookings weeks in advance to assist with forecasting. So if you know that you're going to have a huge demand, say over the Christmas period, where you're going to have a drop-off of resource around, again, the Christmas period, then you can actually book these in advance, and then you can sort of see when you're going to have to go and change the availability of resources. And one of the most important things it can do is, rather than just create bookings, it can actually re-optimize when booking timings, when visit timings, priorities, and resource availability changes. So if somebody goes on leave, short notice, or a new high priority visit comes up, then little changes like that can actually have a huge flow-on effect to all the other visits that are in the system. So what RSO can do is actually look at that set as a whole. So RSO as a product isn't very visual to use, runs in the background, normally nightly. That's the configuration screen that's on show there. So it can create new bookings and optimize existing bookings for a specific geographic area. Unlike a human scheduler, it has the ability to evaluate all bookings, resources, and travel distances at the same time and modify all bookings in one hit. So that's something that a scheduler can't really do. They can't really juggle all that information. And what it will also do is compare thousands of different combinations, deciding on what the optimal approach is. And one thing that's important to kind of note, just on the screen, so if you're ever setting this up, there's a thing called range duration and range offset. So range duration means this is actually going to be scheduling for the next 2 days of visits and optimizing. This range offset, RSO is not going to go and shuffle bookings around. It's going to be set in stone. The only person who's actually going to be changing them is a real person. It's a scheduler. I'll do it for specific reasons. RSO has got some configurability, which are called goals, which determine how RSO behaves. So maybe the goal is to maximize travel time, to minimize travel time to save costs. Or maybe making sure high priority jobs get assigned is even more important than time being critical. And Microsoft is adding new constraints and objectives based on client need. So one of the ones which Nurse Mortgage is taking up at the moment is required resources, preferred resources. So the idea is that if you've got a few nurses that a client wants to go to, then you can basically put them in and it'll make sure that they get first dibs on the job. A thing to note is that, RSO will create, move, reassign, or delete bookings. So it's just as important to decide when RSO should move, just like I said earlier. Okay, so imagine now, so all the bookings are being created in the system, and Norma is off to see Bob. So Norma needs to know when and where the next appointment is, including the tasks that need to be completed. So this is a very, very standard sort of field service situation, okay? Who I'm seeing, when and why. However, as she is a nurse, she needs to do a bit more than that. So she needs to see Bob's history with Nurse Maud, including all the other care that's being delivered. So she's not the only person delivering care for Bob. There could be other people doing other stuff as well, which she needs to be aware of. She needs the ability to complete medical assessments for Bob, e.g. view his earlier wound assessments and record whether or not his wound is getting better or worse. So somebody else may have been taking the previous week's wound assessment and she may not know about it, but she needs to be able to see that, to see whether it's getting better or worse, because that could dictate whether or not he's going to have increased visits or decreased visits based on his condition. And needs to make decisions on how Bob's care needs to change based on his present condition. So again, increasing the number of visits or adding new tasks to be completed, and then passing that information back to the service coordinator so she can decide how to add visits and get additional funding. Now, prior to field service being introduced, this was all a bit of an issue. All of Bob's medical history and paperwork was back at the office and had to be collected at the start of each day. So even if she started off working next door to Bob, she still had to go into the office to get all the paperwork and then get back to Bob's place. And while at Bob's home, all the care assessments were updated on paper, requiring them to be later rekeyed into the back office system. And not even all the information, just all the key bits of information. So there's a lot of re-entry of information, which is no longer needed. So field service and Resco Mobility changed this. I'm just going to show you some of the screens from the Resco app. So this is a screenshot from Resco. So Resco is the mobile app that is used for scheduling, well, for in the field, so that the field staff can see what needs to happen. So once bookings have been created, support workers and nurses view their bookings on their phone, tablet, or laptop. So it scales up and down, and they see different information depending on what they need to see. This style of screen is fairly standard, whether you are in healthcare or a plumber. It's pretty standard. So up the top here, we can see that the booking status is currently scheduled. So when they first go out and they start the job, they'll say, right, I'm starting. And then when they've completed the job, they'll say, right, I'm done. And that has flow-on effects further down, which I'll talk about. So you can see when the visit is and how long the planned duration is. You can see who you're going to go visit. You can drill down and get more details on them. Nice little map there to try and assist with where you're going. And at a minimum, you can set the tasks that need to be completed once they're there. So in this case, wound care. And then when they're actually working through delivering the wound care, they can go through and actually tick off each item that they've actually completed. And this is all, touchscreen enabled, so tick, 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 tick. Makes it nice and easy. So, so Nurse Mord also needed a tool which could show all of the client's history, current services, problems, and assist with client care assessment paperwork without requiring a trip back to the office. So this is an example of one of the assessments that they do for Nurse Mord. I've just picked some very basic, common assessments. So they're nothing too specific to Nurse Mord themselves. This is called a falls assessment. It's one of the assessments, one of the client assessment types that Nurse Mord completes. Records whether a client is at risk of falling or injuring themselves. So it provides guidance on how to accurately assess the clients. That's at the top there. There's a number of questions that need to be answered electronically. So when you type them in, you don't have to go and rekey them later. Put them in, they're in the back office, they're recorded, they're there, they're audited for history. And there's links to additional guidance, online guidance if needed. So this sort of process really applies to any field service arrangement where someone's out in the field, whether they're fixing tractors or what. So you can extend the platform to help you out. So I've got a couple more examples here. This is what's known as a Braden score assessment. So it's used to determine whether a client is at risk of developing a pressure ulcer. So it's one of the many uncomfortable things that you find when you're actually dealing with healthcare is you learn all these health terms that you don't really want to know about. We had one early on actually. Basically, we just spent a month at the start of the project, and we were going through all the functional requirements, and we just completed all the functional requirements. And I said, right now we have to go to the slightly more tricky NFRs. To me, that means non-functional requirements. But I got this kind of weird look from all the nurses in the audience. NFR also means not for resuscitation in healthcare. So. Yeah. Okay, so this one here, the risk level is auto-calculated by the mobile application based on the answers provided, meaning it's always accurate. So you enter in the different questions and then it'll work out the risk level is high risk and give a score and do all that. So it's an example of how you can actually build out a logic and smarts with an application to help you deliver things. It also gives you a nice way of actually giving feedback. So this is a BMI assessment, so body mass index. And what it's actually showing is how Bob's BMI is actually increasing over time. So he's been eating too many cookies with his teeth. So what I'm trying to demonstrate this here is that the field service mobility should be the starting point and not the end point when you actually think about field service. So Resco allows the base functionality to be extended to include all of the nursing specific needs, such as completing a wide variety of assessments, and these are just a pretty simplest examples out of a swag of them. Modifying and printing out of care plans, so actually printing out the care plan in the field and leaving it with the client, so it can do report generation offline, and informing the back office of any changes in client needs. So now there's some extra bits that we built that also you may need if you were to build something similar. So field service is a key part of the nursing ward solution, but it's not the full solution. This generic needs to be customized and extended to meet business needs. It also doesn't replace systems that you'll want to retain, such as existing billing and payroll systems. So it is a part of the system, but it's not your entire system. So it's something to be aware of. If you think field service is going to deliver everything, it's not. It's just a piece. So I've got 4 pieces here, which a few examples of where we've extended the system. So staff availability and skills. So normal nurse can only be assigned to Bob's visit if she's rostered on and the skills needed to deliver the required, has the skills needed to deliver the required task. Nursing ward staff have highly individual and changeable work hours, and their qualifications increase over time, allowing them to deliver more complex visits. Maintaining these for 1,000 staff in CRM is impractical. You could do it, but you'd be banging your head against the wall pretty soon. So Nursing ward already had a system to maintain staff rosters and qualifications and pay global. So rather than trying to throw a system that was perfectly fine, we integrate with it. So what it does is it pulls all the work hours from Pay Global into CRM, so that field service and RSO have them available, so they know to only roster people on it, provide work to people who are actually rostered on. It also determines whether to roster in lunch breaks at specific times. Now, you'd think lunch breaks would be a real simple thing. Lunch breaks are actually incredibly complex in field service. There's contractual rules about when people can have lunch breaks. So you've got, if you work, say, 4 hours and you get a lunch break, and if you don't, then you may not get a lunch break. And the way field service can shuffle visits around at any time, it means one rule doesn't necessarily fit. And what it also does is it converts Pay Global qualifications, such as having a registered nurse qualification, into specific field service skills, such as delivering wound care. So one thing we found early on was the way nurses actually reported their qualifications didn't fit well with how field service operates. So you could have a person with, say, 2 small qualifications, nursing qualifications, allow them to do a task, or you might have someone who has got a bigger, more important qualification, but also allows them to do that task. And so it didn't really work all that well. So what we did was we got it so that we automatically convert qualifications they've got to the tasks to be delivered. Funding. So Bob's visits were funded by ACC, who have strict rules about how many visits they will fund. So they may fund by visit, or they might fund by number of hours in a set period. So if Bob now requires 3 visits a week instead of 2, the 3rd visit won't automatically have funding available. Now, this conflict between the client's needs and strict funding conditions had previously led to visits being delivered before additional funding was obtained, which was quite problematic. I mean, if you was working with a plumber and funding wasn't available for them to come out and fix your pipe, you just wouldn't get the visit. But with nursing, if somebody needs care and is expecting care, you can't just not deliver care because the funding isn't available. So Introgen built a funding service which could assess whether a planned visit still had funding and whether additional visits, when additional visits were added, so moving from 2 to 3 visits, or just that the length of time of a visit increases. So if you've got 4 hours worth of funding per week, and that was going to be 2 visits, and then the first visit suddenly takes 3 hours, then the second visit isn't technically funding, it's not enough funding available. So basically it will highlight all these conditions and it will allow Nursing ward to actually sort that issue out before delivering a visit. Billing and billing exceptions. So Bob's Care is funded by ACC, but ACC will only pay if everything is in order. So one of the things we found early on was that if the nurse goes out and she starts a visit and forgets to stop the visit when she's completed it, it might show that this 30-minute visit is actually 3 hours because it wasn't turned off. And then of course ACC is not going to pay that. So what we did was we built a billing application which reviews all completed visits and checks them for issues, such as actual time exceeding what was planned, that sort of thing. So completed visits that pass all these checks, and there's about 10 different checks. Then those visits are actually passed to Nursemaud's existing billing engine that they used previously to this project, and it will carry on doing processing billing as normal. Now, any visits that fail to, or any visits that have billing exceptions, they'll be assigned to a team member to go and actually sort out what that exception is and correct that up before the billing is done. And payroll. So Norma likes to be paid for the hours she's worked, but like most people, she hates filling out timesheets, meaning that they can be rushed and inaccurate. So Intergen built a payroll application that would extract the actual time spent with the client and pass it on to Pay Global, which was managing all payroll. This was the most accurate way for all involved and no longer required timesheets. So effectively, it's based on the actual time that they spent rather than the estimated time. One of the other added benefits they found for this was that you could actually compare the actual time spent on a particular task versus what everyone always assumed was spent on a task. Some tasks took a lot longer than they thought, other tasks took a lot shorter time. So people got paid for what they actually did rather than what people thought they did. So in summary, so the system has been live for over a year now and handles over 4,000 visits per day. It assisted Nursemaud to expand into the Wellington market and will soon be used in Nelson Marlborough. So one of the benefits was that it was very, very easy to lift and shift what we're doing for Canterbury and just change territories, etc., and reuse that in a different region. The last point I just want to point out is Intergen worked on site with Nursemaud during the entire process, following the agile one team approach, and that worked well. Working on site with Nursemaud, basically sharing our knowledge of how to build applications and sharing their knowledge of nursing, which is hugely extensive, and actually working together as one team did a really good job. Okay, that's Oscar. Any questions? I think the nurses basically picked up the car for the length of time that they sort of needed it and just hung on till the end of the week. I mean, we could have, extended to put that in. But a lot of times, they have been in business and using cars for a long time before this new system came along, and they have processes already in place for managing the car fleet and the servicing and things like that. Yes, you could. Yes, definitely.
I wasn't going to ask you. No,
you're allowed to. You got builders.
I just like to say well done. It was like 2-3 years. It's, well done. Yeah. It was massive.
It was. It was a big job. Any other questions about field service? Is anybody thinking of putting in place? Cool. Okay, we'll leave it there. Break off for lunch early.
Yeah. I'm thinking too. There was once they talked to Living doctors. Oh, yeah. Correct. Yeah. It really is kind of so it's like too much. The section. Oh, you know, good man. It's good stuff. Good. Just doing that much of the my country. So how the assistant for a year.
What's been like here? Wellington was less than a year, half a year. Yeah, originally we're going to go Canterbury first, and we're going to do Nelson Melbourne, but then Wellington suddenly jumped to you, and so Wellington got put online. Quick. And yeah, it's really just lift and shift, eh?
So my this year or something. He uses
I know they've had some teething problems with the kind of very specific requirements. Not right resource. Yeah. There's a bit of it. What I've been doing is there's no way white things have been done, and ways with it. System doesn't bias.
We send 6 million emails a year.
It should have always individuals. And we can realize that's kind of the way it's been done.
You drop over the contacts. So you make a market Christchurch. Yeah, I'm just curious.
So what's your role?
Oh, I'm not. That's just another thing. Leverage it. So we've been able to leverage the